a playlist original.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Back to the Blockbuster. My name is Gaius Bowling, and this is a very special episode of Back to the Blockbuster because when it's released this week, it will be released a year to the day that the first episode of Back to the Blockbuster launched to the public. And to celebrate the occasion, have a special guest. It feels weird saying guest because he was a part of the show from the beginning. Um, but yeah, a lot of people have
Back,
asked
baby. We back. We back. I can't contain myself any longer. I can't be silent any longer. I'm back, guys. I'm back. I'm ready. It's been a year.
Yeah. It's crazy. So I've told Owen like offline like a few weeks ago. Most of the interaction that the show gets is via Twitter. I mean, the Instagram page helps to like promote individual episodes and let people know that they're out there, but when it comes to like talking to other people that are listening to the show or other podcasters that have like worked with us or been guests on the show, a lot of it happens on Twitter, either through the Back to the Blockbuster page or through my G-Reels page. So the cool thing is like you can get all like the analytics and numbers and like see like okay, how many people are listening, and you can get like where you're ranked at this week, but you really can't tell. I guess the best thing about like when you get certain information is when you can tell people are listening to like specific episode stuff. So like if they mention like, oh, like we really liked your Halloween episode, or we really liked your Scream episode, or if they're just like, hey, like where the hell has Owen been? So that means that they've listened and they've been like, oh, he hasn't we noticed that he hasn't been on in a while. And I messaged you would it be okay to address it? And I was going to address it when I initially texted you, but then like timing didn't work out. And then I had Donnie on an episode, and he had been on a couple episodes with you. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna do it at the top of this episode.
Love Donnie.
Yeah, he's awesome, and he helps out in like a pinch all the time. Like he's just always kind of available, which is perfect.
Clutch.
But yeah, I addressed it on that episode, and everyone thought that was cool. That like they were just wondering where you were, and they missed some of your hot takes and stuff. And since you were since you were a part of the show from the beginning, I mean, I could see where they were like, hey, like where'd that guy go? But yeah, it was like really nice. The feedback was really good, and I actually sent you a snippet of like what that dialogue was, and you said I handled it just fine. So like it was cool. Yeah. So that's how
I just want to say like, I mean, at the end of the day, I just want to say to everyone out there who's listening, like, I appreciate you guys reaching out. I had some stuff going on in my personal life that I needed to take care of. And unfortunately, this kind of took a back burner to that. And I just want to say thanks to Gaius and to everyone out there who was thinking about me and reaching out and everything. And I mean, you handled it well. And I just want to say, appreciate your guys' patience, but I am back. I am here for the year anniversary. We can actually say anniversary because it's an actual year.
Yeah.
So we can actually say that officially about our podcast, which is crazy. So just looking forward to today and just ready to get into it. Let's get after it.
Yeah. It was funny because like when I did that episode with Donnie, I had just looked on like Apple Podcasts, and I was like, I know we started sometime around November because we were talking. This was like this point last year. There was a lot of House of Gucci talk that came out in November. We talked a lot about Jared Leto because he was in House of Gucci. That started the whole like we probably don't like Jared Leto phase of the podcast.
Well, so to be fair to everybody, we've always been in that phase. This is just when we started publicly talking about it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. In our personal lives, like in front of each other, we have been very vocal about.
We've been making fun of Jared Leto for years.
Forever. But yeah, I was like, the year one's coming up, and I looked, and I was like, it was a few weeks when I did that episode. It was like going to be in like 2 or 3 weeks, and then I asked you if you want to do it, and you were like, "Yeah, I want to do it." So that's how we ended up here, which is Perfect. You know, like there is some like new stuff, like fun new stuff that we're gonna kind of do to kind of get your takes on certain things. But
and
I
it's
did
not
love.
Ezra Miller, it's not Will Smith, it's not
No, yeah,
anything.
yes,
It's
not Amber Heard, not Johnny Depp.
Yeah, so we're good.
So we're really good. But I did kind of want to give everyone, because like when we started the show, we kind of just had like a first episode that jumped into everything, and we really didn't really talk about like how the podcast kind of came together, how it really started. The boring technical part is like Playlist reached out to me about doing one, and they were like, hey, like we will edit it, we'll do all the stuff that like is really hard or maybe time consuming.
They've been amazing.
Yeah, like that's really like time consuming for you to do. So I was like, all right, I have to make sure that, you know, not blowing smoke up our asses.
But it's funny because like right before they actually reached out to you, we had been talking about this for probably like a month or so, where we were just like, we had a consistent amount of like really good in-depth conversations about movies and TV and just like pop culture in general. And we were like, you know what would be fun is if we actually kind of talked about this with some very loose structured format, maybe in the way of a podcast. Like that would be fun. And then like a month later you got reached to by Playlist, and it was like, well, now we got to take our shot. Now it's like this could actually happen.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it was one of those things that we would talk about, like, oh, that'd be really fun. But I think I think you too, it was like, okay, well, that would be fun, but it's hard to
in the editing stuff. I mean,
yeah, in theory, like, but the editing stuff is hard, and I'm not saying like it's like a difficult thing to do, but if you really want it to be right, it can be time consuming. And like I already edit stuff for like the YouTube channel that I started, and like I get like, only because I'm a perfectionist when it comes to that stuff, it takes a while to edit a video, and I can imagine trying to listen to an hour and a half trying to be like, all right, where's the dead air, where do I cut this, what doesn't work, what does work. I would probably overthink it, and we probably wouldn't have an episode. We probably have like one episode a month if it was like, if I was editing it. And I know you didn't have time to edit it. Yeah, you would have no time to do it at all. So I mean, that was the cool thing, that they kind of cut that part out of like, okay, well, if they're gonna do this, and we just have to come up with like content for it. And like the cool thing is that was really easy, because like for people that don't know, like when Owen and I became like friends, that was like what we initially kind of like bonded over, was like talking about movies and TV and stuff like that. And I remember, and like a lot of my good friends know this, I was like, hey, like I want you to watch 25th Hour. It's like one of my favorite movies. And you're like, all right, cool. I've never seen it. I've never seen it.
Oh, that's a good story.
I've never seen it. And I'm like, all right. And then went over to your house to watch it. And I don't know if you get this way when you really like something.
First of all, Gaius brings over his DVD copy. Like he's always going to bring over like, regardless of what it is, even if you don't watch it on that form, he'll bring the physical media copy over and just be like, this is what we're watching. Yeah. And then, but I think, I mean, did we rent it, or like, how did we,
you ended up getting it on Amazon. You just rented it and you're like, all right, yeah, I'll just do it.
Yeah. I think I just rented it for like $3 or something. I was like, I mean, I don't have a DVD player, dude. So
yeah, I'm the only one with like a Blu-ray player and like all that stuff still, apparently. But I don't know if you ever feel this way when like you're trying to share something with someone that you love, like if it's a TV show or a movie, and then you're kind of like waiting for them to like react, like I wonder if they like it or not. So there was a lot of that when I well, yeah, basically that,
looking at this person and you're like waiting for a reaction, like, what do you think about that scene?
Yeah, like, does he like it? And then you're like, yeah, you liked it and it was good. And then we tried to watch
Rosario Dawson did a great job in that movie too.
Yeah,
Rosario Dawson kills in that movie.
Love that movie a lot. And I like, a lot of my friends know, they're like, because a lot of people haven't seen it, and I'm always surprised that they haven't seen it, because it's got a really good cast, like pretty stacked cast.
It's funny though, because after hearing about like all of Ed Norton's like sort of his notoriety, you know, he's in the editing room being like, nope I wanted this, I kind of want this shot. Like I can feel that he had some influence in the back room, for sure.
I think he did. And like I really think like, because he really wanted to work with Spike Lee, so he sought him out.
Spike Lee joint. It's always a joint. It's not a film. It's not a picture. It's a joint.
It's a joint. And Spike Lee, I think everyone knows, is a huge fan of the Knicks because he's from New York. And like he actually went to a game and like basically was like, I want to work with you. Like, can we work together? Wow. And then that was the end result. And like, but you're probably not wrong. I think a lot of like Edward Norton at
the time. Spike Lee though, I feel like Spike Lee's got some pretty like he's got some hard views, hard points. He's like, this is how I'm going to make the movie no matter what. So I actually feel like, I mean, the end result was perfect because it was kind of they're both flashing personalities of them being like, this has got to be perfect, and they kind of, and honestly, it was great. It's a great movie.
Yeah, and like I think because I listened to the commentary, they did a commentary on the movie like maybe 5 or 6 years ago, like revisiting it, and like I'm always I hear all these things about Edward Norton, like how I don't think he's like this so much anymore, but I think back in the day he had a reputation for being hard to work with. But it was kind of nice to hear him talk so nicely about everyone involved in it. Like I imagine like the Edward Norton back then would probably give like Rosario Dawson a bunch of notes. I'm like, oh, you could you could do this better. But like he spoke really highly of her. He said that, you know, at that time she hadn't been in a ton of stuff. Like she, you know, was mostly in like other Spike Lee movies. She done that movie Kids when she was a little bit younger, and so she wasn't like a name like they were. But he said really nice things about her. He you know, he had really, you know, this was done. The commentary was done after Philip Seymour Hoffman had passed away, so he talked very fondly about like working with him. Barry Pepper, who he loved.
How long ago was that? That was a long time ago now.
That was a long time ago.
5-6 years ago?
Maybe longer than
5
that.
6 years ago, maybe?
Yeah. And he talked about working with Barry Pepper.
That's crazy to think about.
Yeah, and Barry Pepper's from Canada, so he was like, I'm surprised he even got the New York thing like right. But you know, he's an actor, so he got it right. But yeah, you know, I always love sharing that movie with like my friends. I think it's like a great film. And then like after that, I think we tried to watch Red Sparrow.
So after that, it was like we watched this like deeply serious, intense film, like this, like very moving, like one of Gaius's favorite movies. So I was like, okay, I gotta indulge him. Like I gotta pay attention to this fucking movie. I mean, I always do, but I was like, this means something to him. I gotta like pay special attention. And then afterwards, I was like, you know what? Let's watch like Red Sparrow or something. Like let's watch another one. And then we probably got like what, 15 minutes into it.
15 minutes in it.
Different.
Yeah, we were like,
I was like, we need
a
different vibe.
This is not the vibe at all.
You can't follow it with
more serious,
super dramatic thriller. So then we watched Mr. and Mrs. Smith,
which was like the perfect movie to watch.
Which we both hadn't seen in probably years.
Years. It's been years. Yeah, I hadn't watched it in forever, and like we were just both laughing like two buffoons, like watching it. Like I forgot how kind of silly and ridiculous it was, and like, but it was like the perfect movie to watch after something so serious because it's like pretty light. And I think we both.
No, it was just so perfect because one of the best things we said too, we were just like, yo, like I know they both said, Brad and Angelina both said they didn't do anything on set. The sexual chemistry is undeniable on that. In that movie.
It is.
No way.
I remember we were watching it. I was like, dude, R.I.P. to Brangelina, because like that was like they can never revisit that movie again.
That's the beginning of their romance, man.
Yeah, she probably never wants to watch that movie or hear of it again. He probably feels the same way because they've had a pretty nasty fucking divorce. Like
I'm wondering
really
if
bad.
I'm wondering if the writers like. I mean, and I know it's just a like script from the movie, but when she doesn't recognize him and then she sees his dick on camera, she's like, I know that out of anywhere.
I know that anywhere. Yeah,
that's him.
But yeah, like that, and then like that whole night though, it's pretty much like what the friendship and relationship is, and like how we just enjoy kind of like. I mean, I made him watch a heavy movie like 4 weeks ago. I made him watch Closer, and I was like, "Hey, it's one of my favorite movies," and that was pretty heavy. But he ended up liking it. But it was it's great. It's a heavy one, but like and like he, I think what has been missing like on the show is that like even when you wouldn't necessarily know about a certain topic or hadn't seen a certain movie or a TV show, you were really good at like listening and then like kind of piggybacking questions off of like, oh, like, well, why do you think they did this? Or why did you think this happened? Like, I think a good example of that was when we did our Buffy episode and you aren't really a Buffy guy, but like, you were like, I'm just going to listen to like everyone has to say. And you still chimed in on like what you needed to jump in on.
Well, I feel like my likes are so diverse that even if I haven't seen necessarily like that specific show, like I've seen something that's kind of like it, or I've seen certain things that maybe have influenced that, or that was the influence for one of my shows that I enjoyed or something like that. I mean, there's so much content out there nowadays that like it is impossible for me to consume everything that everyone likes. So I can't necessarily say that I've seen everything. And that was actually something that one of my New Year's resolutions the last couple of years was to stop telling people that I've seen a movie when I haven't seen it.
Well,
like,
you haven't seen
sort
it.
of like that awkwardness where it's like, have you seen that? And you're just like, Yeah.
Especially if it's like a popular one that
you like, yeah, especially like a popular one.
Like you should have watched. Like,
I've decided I did this a couple years back. I was like, you know what? No more lying. Like, just when you haven't seen something, it's okay to say like,
yeah,
it's fine.
It's just like, yo, I haven't seen it. Now sometimes I mean
that's also one of my biggest pet peeves too, is when you say you haven't seen something and someone's like, seriously?
Yeah,
You've
there's
never seen that movie. I'm like, all right, yep, no, I haven't.
Yeah, usually movie purists do that when they're like, no, I've never. Like, so that's why I'll confess this for like
immediate shame.
I'll confess this for like years. Yeah. I didn't see the first Godfather until I was maybe 21, 22. But I, like you, when people would ask me,
hours? That's the thing. Yeah, do you have 3 hours to sit down and watch this movie?
But like you, when people would ask me before that if I'd seen it, I'm like,
yeah, totally.
And totally, they were like, "Oh, what's your favorite scene?" And like, you know enough.
Sonny.
Like, seeing, yeah. Like you're like, and I'm like, dude, I gotta watch this eventually. Like, I can't keep lying. But yeah, it happens a lot, and you do get that from people who are like, I get that for a lot from other film students. Like back when I was like LA Film School, I'm like, oh yeah, I haven't seen that, and like the look of like pure like disappointment they give you,
just like seriously,
all right.
Amateur.
But also, I feel like people think they're better just because they've seen certain things.
Yeah.
Like, and then I think also people pretend to like certain things because they want to come off as like, well, you know, I'm very smart.
I completely agree. I mean, I feel like there are certain films that people kind of attach themselves to where it's like, this is a great piece of cinema. And if you don't like this, then you like, even if maybe they didn't necessarily enjoy it, they like it because they think that it's cool to like it. And I think that comes from stuff like, I mean, it sucks because I'm going to get a lot. This is a hot take coming in. I'm going to start naming films that everyone loves. It's like The Shining, Clockwork Orange, like Citizen Kane. It's like all of these movies that are so iconic that technically drove the business of filmmaking. Right. But if you say like maybe you didn't enjoy it, someone's like, "How dare you? How dare you?"
Yeah. I've gotten that for you know, it's funny that you mentioned The Shining and Clockwork Orange. I've gotten that a lot of Stanley Kubrick movies, because you have to be in the right mindset to watch his stuff. You have to be like, because he was a very strange man, very talented director, but like you have to really want to watch A Clockwork Orange.
I guess I started naming Kubrick films. That's kind of what I did, I guess.
But you have to really want to watch that. And then like The Shining, like I love horror movies. I like The Shining, but I also think it's way too long. And like I mean, even Stephen King doesn't like what he did with The Shining. I mean, that's always been like a big deal about like he felt that he diverted so far away from his book that it wasn't even like the same thing anymore. And you know, Stephen King, even though
a completely new artistic approach to what the story is.
Right. And Stephen King's like the master of horror, like for novels and stuff. But like a lot of people in horror movie circles hate that he does not like The Shining. But like that was his baby, right? He wrote the book, and like he's like, hey, like this guy did a complete.
He's written a lot of books. He's written a lot of books. It's okay if he doesn't like that one.
And because and the thing is, like, if you wrote something, right, and like so someone adapted it, and it was like, this is not what I wrote. This is not the like thing that it's supposed to be. You feel
that's how I would feel if I was. So I'm gonna throw a little curveball. It's Rick Riordan, who did the Percy Jackson series. That's how I would have felt after watching that movie. I would have been like,
I've heard this a lot about that.
And destroyed it and made it something that everyone's gonna make fun of.
Well, you know,
because I mean, those books are incredible. I mean, they take a lot of really fun stuff about Greek mythology and turn it into like a sort of teenage coming of age story that's fun.
Yeah.
And then you see the movie and you're like, this is dog shit.
This is not why.
Doesn't make any sense.
This is not why.
Doesn't make any sense.
I think they're gonna try to correct that too, because I know they're doing a TV show, a version of it, and everyone that's involved with it said that it's much more faithful to the series. So at least there's that. Yeah, I don't know. I think certain people change things because they're like, oh well, what works on the page might not work like for an actual film.
And that's so true. That's so true.
Yeah, and I get that. I get that a lot with like comic book movies, because it's like I used to have friends that used to like, well, like I hate that they're not wearing their original costumes. I was like, well, I mean, spandex looks cool, I guess, on like in a comic book panel.
You can draw however you want.
Yeah, but like it might not be that. Like I remember when the first X-Men movie came out, my buddy like hated their uniforms.
People don't really look like that. Like humans don't really look like that.
He hated that they wore like all black in the movie and that they didn't have their original costumes. I was like, but that in 2000, I don't think that would have looked cool. I mean, I just wouldn't have looked as good.
It would have looked terrible.
So like, you just have to accept certain changes like that. Like, they're not really changing the mythology or the lore. Who cares? Like, you got your X-Men movie. Like, who cares? Like, what they're like, what they're wearing.
At the end of the day, it just kind of brings into discussion sort of the whole like anthology of like movies versus what they were portrayed in the books. It's like, no matter what, it's going to be a little bit different no matter what. I mean, like, I would even say Harry Potter 1 and 2 were as true to the books as they could be while still maintaining the story. And even then they missed a shit ton of stuff.
Right.
And it's like, you can still do it, but at the end of the day, I mean, you have 90 minutes. At this point, I have 2.5 hours sometimes if you really want to make something, which is just draining. Sit through that kind of thing. But I think that like turning a book into a movie is like it's basically like giving it tribute to say this is a story that deserves to be seen on screen as well. And like I think probably like the Stephen King book, it probably wasn't the same on screen as it was in the book, but it's still like a good piece of art, and it's like a great adaptation of it.
Right, and I think faithful enough where he liked that, he didn't complain. You know, most of the stuff most of the movies that he's like that have been adapted from his books, he mostly likes them. Like Carrie was the first book that he wrote. That was the first movie that got adapted from one of his novels, and he loves Carrie. He loves Misery. Like, I mean, like, there's certain ones that they've gotten right, and then of course there's the stuff that he wrote that's not even horror. Like, I always forget that he wrote Shawshank Redemption, and like that he
that's crazy. That's crazy.
And the Green Mile. Like, so like there's stuff that he's like written that has nothing to do with horror, and like, you know, the guy is just really brilliant, and like he's gotten.
Do you think that he has this like? Do you think it is a quality over quantity? Because he has quantity.
He has quantity. So like, there's the thing too. So I've read some of his books, and of course I've seen a lot of his movies that have, you know, that were based on his books. It's one of those things. And there's been so many of them that I can name a handful of like really good ones, but there's also been some really, really shitty ones too. He has so much stuff.
He has to have some that aren't good.
That there has to be some stinkers in the bunch. So like, and then like, you know, of course, like we said with Stanley Kubrick, certain people are going to adapt things differently. They're not going to maybe follow like. I think that's why he became much more like involved with some of his stuff after The Shining, because he was just like, this guy really felt like he bastardized his like novel. So that's why he is like more heavily involved
in the process,
and now because of that very reason.
I'm also wondering if also he thought like, okay, I got to take the ones that were good, and if they're going to make them into a movie, because I've made some good ones before, we got to make sure these stories are exactly what I'm thinking. Because like, let's just say they took one of his shitty movies and tried to turn it into a movie. He's like, no, let's go with the clown one. I think we should do that one. I will say, dude, that's one of the first horror movies I ever like caught a glimpse of. It was playing at one of my friend's house when I was like super young kid. I had nightmares about that fucking clown for years, man. I saw like images. I think I saw images of it when I was like 6 to 8 or something like that, and I was like, yeah, that is nightmare fuel right there.
Yeah, that's like, it's so funny too, because like I think in both versions, so Tim Curry played Pennywise in like the first movie back in the day, and then Bill Skarsgård does it in the new ones, and I think they both in their own right they are very creepy in their own right. And I love the story about making the new one, how the kids didn't even get to see him until they did their first scene with him. So the genuine like fear on their faces, like, it's very real, because they hadn't seen him at all, and he did that on purpose because he also purposely stayed away from them during filming, because he wanted to like he wanted to actually scare them, and because he felt like if he was around them and like kind of was like, oh, like, I'm Bill, like whatever.
If you're buddy, you can't get that sense of like just like absolute fear. You can't get that.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're friends with them,
So before we get into like some of the new stuff, I do want to, like, we used to start the show with like some of the things that we've been watching. So like, what have you kind of been checking out, you know, I guess for the last
recently?
recently?
I guess Yeah, no. So I've definitely been watching a lot of the newer stuff that's coming out. I guess most recently probably excuse me, is I mean, can we talk about Dahmer and the
Yeah,
monster?
yeah,
Like that,
yeah.
and
Oh yeah. Well,
it just got renewed for a couple
it
new
just got
seasons as
renewed.
well.
This is how
So
you know like things are like this wasn't the intention. Like because at first when they were promoting that show, they were like it's a limited series. Like, there's only going to be like a one off. But then like uh it's gotten 1 billion hours viewed since it premiered in
yeah,
September.
it's
Yeah,
insane.
I think
It's
it's their
insane.
second biggest English language show on Netflix. So they renewed it as like an anthology series, which I guess they'll just focus on a different serial killer.
But the thing is,
every-
the thing that I'm worried about though is like these kind of shows, like they kind of become one hit wonders where it's like they're critically acclaimed immediately after they come out, and then they make a couple more seasons. And I'll give you two examples right here. One is Mindhunter, which
yeah,
I've been rewatching recently. First season was insane. Second season was pretty good, and they still haven't like. Is there going to be another season? Like we didn't even get to see BTK.
right,
And then the other one is True Detective, where it's like the first season is
really fell off.
absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah,
And then once it becomes like an anthology and we're like trying to do a different story with different actors, it doesn't feel the same.
right.
And so it's like that's what I'm worried about for this, is that even though it's got two more seasons renewed, it's like
Yeah,
what else, what are you going to pick next that's going to be just as good? Because it's kind of like the thrill wears off after you've
yeah,
seen that first show. That's amazing. I mean, Westworld just got canceled too. Westworld season 1 and 2, amazing. 3, pretty good. 4, exact same shit. No wonder they didn't renew it. Like
yeah.
I totally get it. Like I totally get it. And so that's what I'm wondering, if they can do that with this sort of Monster Hunter, or I don't even know what it's called, but like
Yeah, it's just
Monster.
got monster. Yeah, yeah. My concern, because I've actually watched it and I liked it. I mean, Evan Peters was great on it. Um, he
That was
also,
great.
yeah, he also apparently stayed in character while filming it. So Niecy Nash was like, I never met Evan Peters until after we wrapped, which I thought was like interesting. Um, but like it I my concern is Ryan
Nailed the
Murphy.
voice.
Yeah. My concern is Ryan Murphy. Ryan Murphy has a tendency to
Okay.
start things off really well and not stick the landing. And I
Okay.
know this is different because it's like an anthology show, so it's like a different story. But like,
Yeah.
you know, this is the guy who created like Nip Tuck, and like Nip Tuck started strong and then they fell apart.
Gotcha.
He created Glee,
Yeah.
that started strong,
But that's
and then it
also
fell
a
apart.
prime time, and that's a prime time like Thursday night show
Yeah, right, yeah,
on
right,
NBC. Like
right,
that's very different than something you can show on Netflix and HBO.
right, right. But yeah, but he also, what he does do really well is that he does true crime really well. Like, this is the guy that's also behind like American Crime Story, that like did the OJ Simpson one, and then
Really,
he did Versace. So like he's really good at like
dude.
those kind of
Honestly,
stories.
that OJ series, and then followed by the Versace one, that's
Yeah,
actually a good example of keeping it true to what it should be, because they were both fantastic.
yeah, and he's good at that. So on the one hand, I get worried because sometimes he doesn't stick the landing, but on the other hand, he seems to have like this niche of like the true crime stuff. He's really good. Now he's gotten a lot of shit for it. Like a lot of the, he said that he contacted like 20 to 30
I saw
of
that.
the victims' families and stuff to kind of talk to them. They're saying that didn't happen and that they wish they were consulted more. They also feel that the show glamorizes Jeffrey Dahmer, even though the creators of the show say they feel like they're doing this from like the victim's perspective. Um, the thing about these true crime things, whether it's like a TV show or a real life true crime show, is that so many of us are like obsessed with watching shit like that, even though it's
Yeah.
even though some of it's deeply disturbing. But like, I think there is a fine line when you're like trying to write something or do something that's supposed to be for entertainment, when all this stuff has happened to real people. I get the kind of concern,
Yeah.
especially if you're a victim of like
Totally.
a family member of a victim of this. So like
100%.
I get that, but I also this might be like not the best take, but like the Holocaust happened, right? But like you have something like Schindler's List out there, like Steven Spielberg made it. It's you know
Mhm.
a lot of there's
It's an event in history
an
that
event in
happened, and we
history
need
that
to learn
is
from it.
real, right. So it's like if there's certain things that like like based on real life tragedies, and it's like, unfortunate. Like I thought that we were never gonna make a movie about 9/11, and we ended up getting like a few of them, and like
4 or 5.
4 or 5 of them, and like I think with time removed,
and they're probably going to make another one pretty soon. They're going to make another one pretty soon with like Mark Wahlberg or something.
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised.
They're probably going to make one.
I wouldn't be surprised, but like
sorry,
far removed.
Sorry to anyone. I'm not trying to be insensitive to anything about 9/11, but they're probably going to make another movie about it. So.
No, I remember when United 93 came out. I was like, okay, this doesn't feel like it's kind of taking advantage of the event because it was all unknown actors in it. It made it feel more real because it wasn't like you couldn't be like, oh, that's so and so, right? So I've only watched that movie once. I mean, I liked it, thought it was well made, but it wasn't something I could watch again. It was just hard to watch.
Yeah.
But then they made World Trade Center with Nicolas Cage, and that was much more of a Hollywood movie because you have Nicolas Cage and Jay Hernandez, and like you knew those people, and so like it was really hard for me to watch that. It was. Yeah, I was like, this feels too Hollywood. This feels like they're taking advantage of it. But I don't know. Like I think what Ryan Murphy did with Dahmer is good. I'm like you. I'm apprehensive about like if it can sustain that kind of like momentum.
I mean, here's the thing that I'll say about especially the victims' families, and even Ryan Murphy saying that he reached out to them. It's like this is a really tough situation in terms of storytelling because it's like you really want to tell the story the right way. Right. And unfortunately, in the fact of doing that, you show that this guy who became a notorious serial killer, he murdered a bunch of people brutally.
Yeah.
But was it nature or was it nurture? And unfortunately, it seems like this was nature and nurture at the same time, where it's like he had a shit childhood. He was abused. He was not taken care of. He was showed things very early on that he should not have known. And he sort of was, I mean, he was bullied. Like there was all these sort of factors that kind of drew into him becoming what he was. He probably was always fucked up from the beginning. I mean, I'm not going to lie. Right. Like anyone who eats people is fucked up. Yeah. But he definitely had some things. He definitely had some things that happened to him in his life that definitely egged him on to kind of do these things. And when you're telling a story like that, in the reality of it, you have to show that side if you want to do it well. If you want to do it well, and
you can't sugarcoat it. Yeah, it's like it's a real thing that happened. Yeah.
There's two streets. There's two sides to every street, unfortunately, and like this was a great adaptation of it. I think it was really, really, really well done. I felt bad for the victims immensely, but I also felt bad for him. And then I was like I wasn't rooting for anybody. I was just like enthralled about what was going to happen next. Also, the police force where they wouldn't listen to what the neighbor was saying.
Yeah, and then I'm glad you brought that up.
Dude, I'm glad you brought that up. There's some serious like LGBT stuff where it's like, I mean, we actually, I think we already talked about this, where it's like they wouldn't go into his apartment because he said, "Oh yeah, there's like gay stuff in here," and the cops were like, "All right, yeah, we're not going to go in.
Yeah, we're going to go in."
Around that.
Or how they were able to like
absolutely no way that would happen.
He was able to convince them to like the one guy that got away
because of their uncomfortability.
Because their uncomfortability, and like I thought, like what the show did really well, was showing that, because that's always been like an important part of like any documentary that's been made about him. They've talked about how like this probably could have been prevented a lot had the police not been so like homophobic back then. And they turned a blind eye to it because and that's why I thought,
because he was completely like he was gay, he was out, he was like weird, like they didn't want to get involved, and they didn't want to deal with it. So that's why I think the show does well. I personally don't think it glamorizes him. I mean, like I think everyone will say that because it's a show based on him, and like I don't think like when I watch that, I don't see like anything cool about it or think anything like like I also think they give people credit enough to like watch stuff like that and like know that they're not glamorizing a situation like that. I mean, I know it's being made for entertainment. That's a really hard topic, man, because there's a lot of shows out there that kind of glamorize these like sort of anti-heroes. I mean, I'll give you two examples right now. One is Peaky Blinders. Like Cillian Murphy's character is not he's not like a good dude. Like he's not like a good person. He's still like a thief and a killer, and like not like, I mean, but the thing is the show centers around him, so you obviously are like kind of rooting for him. Same situation with Dahmer. But I also think too, one of my favorite shows, Californication. the
Oh yeah,
main character is this
he's not exactly likable, yeah.
sex addict.
Yeah,
Who's
yeah.
like, I mean, he comes off as likable to everyone, and everyone kind of likes him, but he's not a good dude. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So it's like sometimes when you take the main character and you put him in this light where they're the star of the show, you kind of just, as an audience member, automatically are kind of drawn to be on their side. But at the end of the day, I think what Dahmer does so well is showing that that's completely untrue. Is like, you shouldn't be rooting for this person. Like, even though this is the whole point of the show, this is a bad person. And like, you should know that because of all the actions that I've shown you prior, that I've shown you now, and that I will show you. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I used to feel that way. I remember when How to Get Away with Murder was on, and Viola Davis's character, she's the lead, and she was not likable whatsoever. Now, she did things on the show that was like, you were like, when they kind of dived into her past, like you were like, all right, I see where this like hostility is coming. I can see how you got here. But like, I remember I had a friend that like couldn't watch it because he was like, oh, everyone actually on that show was kind of like fucked up a little bit. But I was like, I don't need every show to have like a hero. Like
that's why I stopped watching Shameless, man. I couldn't watch Shameless because everyone was so unlikable, and I was like, everyone's so fucked up, and every decision you're making is so fucking annoying and ridiculous and against everything I believe in. I'm not watching the show anymore. I can't.
I remember like, I think for some people they need at least one person that like, can there be one person that's
straight man,
one person that's like the nice guy or girl like that, like that's gonna
who's telling you this is ridiculous, don't make this choice.
And I remember How to Get Away with Murder kind of had that with some of her law students, but then they were like doing stuff to cover up murders and shit, so like they were also they're all fucked up. So like, but yeah, I mean, like I don't mind if the lead what's that one show that's like she's sleeping with the president? Oh shit! Why am I blanking on Kerry Washington? Scandal. Yeah, that's why I couldn't keep watching that show either, because she's like, I hate this guy. He's terrible to me, but I'm gonna fuck him again, even though he's the president and he's married. He's married, and the wife knew about it. Like, it was like, so like my mom used to like eat that show. I can't watch the show. I can't. I remember walking into my room one day and like after work, and I left my TV on, and Scandal was on. And I had never watched a full episode of it. I've only like seen snippets. I saw season 1. Yeah, and I remember I was sitting down like at the computer, and I don't know. I mean, shout out to Shonda Rhimes, who was like, the writing of I didn't know what was going on, but Kerry Washington was giving some fucking monologue, and I was just like, this is good. I was like, I have no idea what's going on, but like, I kind of can see great writing for prime time. I could see what like people were like about this, but then like when I would hear about the premise, I was like, well, how are we supposed to root for her? It's like you don't. You really don't. But you do. You really do. You feel bad. You feel bad for rooting for them. You're like, aren't you? Okay. So you asked me originally what I was rewatching as well, or just watching. I'm a serial rewatcher. But I just watched the first 2 seasons of White Collar again. That's a good show too. I haven't watched that in forever. That's been a while. Rooting for art heists. Yeah. And like, it's good. So got primetime cringe. Like, there's just like certain things. Like, I will say though, it was mid 2000s, I think. So there's a lot of innuendo that they would not put in today. Yeah, I think they were able to get away with a lot of it because I think it was on the USA Network, so it wasn't on like a Prime, NBC. So they were. I remember it was on Oxygen. Yeah, I remember those days of like when you like this. I guess I'm really familiar with it, noticing it more when Nip Tuck started, because that was the first thing I watched on like FX, and it was something that wasn't on like NBC. What was the other one that was going on with Nip Tuck? What was the doctor show where they were like on-site meds? It was going on at the same time Nip Tuck was. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Like, I know, I can like see it in my head too. But I remember Nip Tuck was like 2 young dudes that like looked hot, and they were doctors, and they would like do autopsies on site, like in like Miami beach houses, basically. I'm like gonna be mad at myself. I'm gonna like look it up later. It was that era. Yeah, I remember. I remember. I have to look it up right now. I remember paying attention to that show and being like, they are doing things on this network that you cannot do on like there's just like sex everywhere, and like I think it was the first time I heard like the word dick on like Not cable. So like, definitely was an interesting time when like those channels and those shows like kind of started like breaking out in like a big way. Also,
Dexter started a lot of it too on Showtime. Dexter.
Yeah, and that's another good example, right? Dexter, another show where the lead is like, okay, well, he's a bad dude.
Okay,
I think he's killing awful people.
That I will vehemently boycott Dexter. That's my hot take of the day. Like, I watched the first season, man, dude. His sister is so whiny. She's like, no one likes me. Okay, now I have a lot of friends. And no one actually like wants to talk to me anymore. They all think I'm like, shut the fuck up. And then he gets to a crime scene, Dexter, and he's like, oh my God, there's no blood. And the guy's like, I think you have a weird obsession with blood. He's like, no. It's like, dude, he's a serial killer, bro.
That was a good Michael C. Hall impersonation.
So obvious.
That's very much how he acted. So fans of that show, I will say this as being a fan of the show until the last episode, which sucked. Everyone hated his sister, even the people that loved the show. No one liked her.
Oh yeah, dude. She sucked.
And now it's funny because in real life they ended up getting married, like in real life, and they were married for a while while they were doing the show on the show, not like the actors in real life. Yeah, so it's so funny that like they were playing brother and sister while they were also like together as a couple.
That's fucking weird, man.
It's
too much.
Really weird. You also said you watched Marriage Story again recently.
I did, yes.
Now, you know what's so crazy is that I was on Twitter today, and apparently it came out like 3 years ago around this time. That's when they started to get a lot of like Oscar push and like I was telling you, like when you texted me about watching it again, and I was telling you, I was like, that for all intents and purposes, it's a good movie. It definitely ripped me apart when I was watching it.
It's definitely one of those. It's definitely one of those ones where you got to be in the mood for it because it's a tearjerker for sure, and it's like a serious like just show about human emotion and change within people, and like the lust phase, and then the love phase, and then the breakout phase, and there's just like so much about it that just embodies sort of longevity with humans, and like just knowing so much about a person. And immediately seeing someone being like, that's the person I want to spend the rest of my life with. And then you're in your mid-20s and it's like, now you're 30 and you hate this person. So like, it's a really great real life look at how expensive it is to be married.
And then get divorced.
It will literally drain your bank account if you become married. But it is also really just like, I mean, it shows that even when you do love a person, and lawyers become involved, sometimes you gotta take a dirty shot. Sometimes you have to take a dirty shot in order to see your kid again. For the rest, if you want to see your kid, you have to be a dick. And it's like, fuck, man, like that shouldn't be.
Yeah.
The thing is that in order to be able to see your kid 50% of the time, you have to tell the court that your wife's a drunk. Like that's so fucked.
And then going to those places that you promised each other you wouldn't go to. Like when you were like, oh, like no, we're gonna make this clean, and then suddenly
we're not doing lawyers. We're doing lawyers.
We're doing lawyers, and then there are lawyers getting your ear. And like they're like, I'm just trying to help.
In order to win this, you have to do this.
Yeah, like I'm just trying to help you win. Like I know you're trying to like play nice, but like there's no playing nice when it comes to this kind of stuff. I thought that stuff rang really true, and I thought like the really the smaller things in that movie, like having to like you feel like you gave up some of your dreams for this person, that
entire monologue is insane.
Yeah, like you settled because of this, like that. Really, is like, damn.
We're gonna start getting into. I know we're gonna do the little rapid fire questions at the end.
Yeah,
Adam Driver, man, Adam fucking Driver, dude. He makes everything so believable. And we were actually talking about this over text over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah,
it's like he's so non-conventionally Hollywood that like all of the roles that he takes, I believe what he's doing.
Right.
It's because he doesn't look like Brad Pitt. He's not George Clooney. He's not trying to swindle you. He's just trying to act like a normal person. And I think that lets him tell the realest stories. And that's what Hollywood is all about. That's what film is about, is telling stories. And so I feel like that's why he is at this point, he's my favorite actor. Like he continues to blow me away in everything that he does.
Well, he has like a lot of range. I mean, I think I brought up like, and this is just one example, like watching something like Marriage Story and then watching him in like Logan Lucky, like it's completely different, completely different role. Crazy. And like
he does what he needs to do.
Right. And I told you this when we were texting. I was like, I kind of wish I wasn't exposed to like him first in Star Wars. I was like, with
the shirtless scene where his pants are up to his nipples.
I was like, I'm not really digging the whole like emo villain thing in this at all. Like, I really don't like it. But of course, he showed that he was much more than that almost right away. Yeah. And other movies.
I think my favorite one of his recently has been The Report. That movie is probably in my top 10 right now of my favorite movies. Like, I've watched it probably 5 times, and like it is, I always find something that it's also super fucking heavy. I mean, it's about torture and prisoners of war and like, but I also kind of like it because it shows what the government won't tell us. It's like like we know this happened. It's all public now. Right, and then we make a movie about it, and people are like, "Oh, cool."
Like, is this really going on? Like,
like this, they're like, "This happened," and it's like, "Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, that's terrible."
Yeah, I mean,
it's all public knowledge at this point. It's so weird. It's so weird.
But then you got like a movie in front of you, like what? And you're like,
you're like, guys. This is not a fake story. Like, this is reality. This actually happened. Like within the last 15 years, people are like, oh wow, that's terrible.
Like, you're just like, Google it.
So like, we getting Taco Bell or Domino's? What are we getting?
Yeah. It's hilarious. That's hilarious. The one last thing I will say about Marriage Story, and this is gonna be a weird comparison because I'm just comparing 2 different movies. What I liked about Marriage Story is that I'm glad that, with at least for me watching it, I didn't like blame one person more than the other. I thought they both had good points about why things weren't working.
Yeah.
And I always so I don't like the breakup with Jennifer Aniston and Vince Vaughn for the reason of I kind of felt like he was like a bum.
He was being,
and she had every right. She had every right.
Yeah,
she had every right to be the way she was with him. So like, if you're gonna make a movie like that, where
but that was also in the age of when it was popular to make guys look like dumb and stupid.
Right, and they still
now,
get the
like
hype.
now it's like
and they still get Jennifer Aniston.
It's like every sitcom dad was like dumb, stupid. The wife knew better. Like he's just making dumb decisions, and like she's just got to be like, hey, it's okay. Like, you're just a guy. Like, I feel like that was that era. Whereas now with Marriage Story, I mean, you put both situations in context, and it's still a gray area. Like, both of their reasoning was realistic, but also like you could have made it work together if you really wanted to, but you both wanted different things. And that's the end of the day, where it's like it's a crossroads of paths where even though both people aren't bad people, they had this merge and they were together for a while. And then what they really wanted, like deeply down to their core, was different. And like they actually they needed to go separate ways. And unfortunately that turned into a legal battle. And it's just like a really realistic movie of seeing what would happen if you got into that situation. And at
that point of your life.
I mean, it made me like, when he's reading, I'm about to get choked up. When he's reading what she writes about him, like in his bedroom,
right,
in their kid's bedroom, when like he finds her note and is reading what she said, like, is good about Charlie. Fuck, man, that is tearjerker right there. That is.
It's really well done.
She's watching him read it too. Like, he doesn't even know that she's listening.
Fuck, it's a really good moment, and they're both very good. They both got nominated for Oscars for it. Laura Dern got nominated too for that movie. She won.
Ray Liotta,
and Ray Liotta, like R.I.P. Laura Dern. I remember after I watched it, because everyone was saying like, "Oh, there's so much Oscar buzz, right?" And I was like waiting for the moment, like when, like what the moment was, and it's that whole like, it's that whole like monologue she gives about like where she's like explaining to her like how this kind of stuff goes, like and
Yeah.
like and like she commands that room, like just talking to her, and like you're like,
The second she opens her mouth, you believe what she's saying.
yeah, you also
Like
believe that she is
like,
a shark of a lawyer. Like you buy her as
yeah.
like right away.
It's like the jury will believe this girl, so I need to concede. Like that is basically the way the lawyers are looking at her.
Yeah, and I do love, and it's kind of funny. I love when like even the lawyers kind of go at it too. Like they're in their own kind of battle with each other, like trying to present the best kind of case.
Yeah.
Well, while the couple's trying to be like, all right, let's try to be like amicable about this, and they are like, no, that's not how this works. But yeah, I thought, yeah, it's a great movie. I need to rewatch it. I haven't watched it.
I also love the sort of meta joke about the space of LA. Everyone just keeps joking. Yeah. There's so much space here. It's just like space, man. And everyone's like, yeah, the space. I get it. The space. And then they try and go trick or treating. And he has to drive everywhere. And the kid gets tired and like. You're just like, the space sucks, man. Like, there's too much space out here. And it's so funny watching that. Like, I watched that movie when I first moved to LA. Yeah. And then watching it again after living in LA, I'm just like, oh my God, the fact that they're talking about the space, it's so funny. It's
like, I have to, it's very accurate too, actually.
Yeah.
Before we jump into the new stuff, I said I would bring this up on the podcast because everyone was like messaging me on G-Reels. Because I was watching this because we were talking about what we've been watching, and I've watched a lot of stuff recently, and too much to name, but I will name this one thing because I was like chronicling it like on my Instagram because I have like this mostly hate relationship with this like franchise. So there's this movie, called After, and the genesis of it, I had to when I first saw the first movie, I was working for Real Talking. That was like the first website I wrote for, and they were like, "Hey, it's the only new wide release. Can you review it?" So I was like, "All right." I saw the trailer for it. It was really, the trailer made it look like a young adult, like 50 Shades of Grey, kind of like a little bit. So then I'm reading up. I'm like, "All right, let me research what this is." So this lady named Anna Todd ended up writing a whole book series about these characters. But what it began as was like her own like Harry Styles fan fiction, and it was about her.
Wait, is this about Harry Styles?
No, but it originated that way. So originally she wrote like out like fan fiction where she's like the innocent like girl who's never like done anything, and then Harry Styles, and this is not the Harry Styles of today. This is like One Direction Harry Styles. So this
is actually like associated around Harry Styles.
Yeah, so she wrote this kind of like this thing where like in the movie the character, the girl, she has a boyfriend, but then she goes off to college, and then she meets a bad boy, and he is clearly a bad boy because he has tattoos, and he's a player. He sleeps around a lot. He also is a bad boy who's smart because he's a bad boy, but he also quotes like Hemingway. So he's like, he's deeper.
He's a well-versed bad boy.
Yeah, he's deeper than most bad boys, and so. Josephine Langford plays the girl. She's the sister of Catherine Langford, who was on 13 Reasons Why. And the guy is played by Hero Fiennes Tiffin. And he's actually the nephew of Ray Fiennes, who played like Voldemort and like...
Oh, dude, love Ray Fiennes.
Yeah.
However you...
I'm going with Fiennes. I like that one. But yeah, I was like... So I saw the first one, and like honestly, the first movie is 80% garbage, but it ended on a cliffhanger, and I was like, well, I kind of want to see like where they end up. So then the sequel came out like while we were shut down, like during lockdown in 2020, and it's called After We Collided.
Okay, so I was gonna say, what's the sequel to After? Like, is there another like?
No, the titles get so much worse. Okay, so After We Collided. The difference between After We Collided and After is that After was rated PG-13, so all like the sex was like CW level sex, even though they were trying to make it seem like it was sexier.
Super softcore.
With this one, they went like straight R. They upped the ante on that. But then
just some topless scenes.
Yeah, but then it just got worse. Like
then it went to G. Then they took a huge turn. Went to a G.
So like that movie was like 90% bad, but it also ended on a cliffhanger. And I was like, well, I got this.
It leaves you wanting more, no matter what.
Yeah, I was like, I've got
always leaves you wanting more.
So like I'm working on the website and then I get
I've already wasted 6 hours of my life watching 2 of these films.
I
might as well
keep it
just
going.
like go into the next one.
Like I need to know like if freaking Harden and Tess are gonna like make it or what's going on, because they're like what you learn throughout all these movies is that they're very toxic for each other. Like he not only he's a bad boy, but he's like an alcoholic. His dad was an alcoholic. He has like all this stuff that that bad boys in these movies have, and of course she's like coming out of this like, oh, I'm just so young and virginal. Now I'm in college, and now he's shown me things that like made her a woman.
Oh my god!
Like that
How much older is he than her?
So he's already in college so I guess like a year older when she meets him. So not bad. But he's got him around.
I was thinking that he was like already like in his mid-20s when she's in college, and I'm like, that's already a red flag.
That's already bad, right? So that ended on a cliffhanger. And then I'm like looking online, and they're like, "Hey, they're making 2 more of these movies." I was like, 2 more. So I kind of forgot. Resurgence. Yeah, you would think, right? So the third one's called the third one's called After We Fell, and then the last one was called the last one was called After Ever Happy. So I watched those.
Oh my god! Seriously, After Ever Happy.
Ever Happy, yeah.
That is.
So I watched them both.
Bad.
I watched them both back to back, and I couldn't help because like some of the scenes were so bad, so I had to start recording it on my phone and putting it on Instagram. And like people were messaging me, they're like, "This is so hilarious that you like, this is awful," but I can see why. But I can see why you would be invested in it, right? But I was like, "Yeah, so it's the last 2. Who cares?" So I get to the end of the last one because they said this is the last one. The fucking shit ended on a cliffhanger and said "to be continued." And so I went online to kind of figure out what's going on. They made a secret. They made a secret sequel like last year that they're gonna release like next year. Yeah, a secret one. They didn't tell anyone about it, they just did it. And I was like, well, now I gotta watch that one too.
These directors are fucking invested, man. Like they know they're making bad movies, but they're giving it to people like you. You are their target audience.
I know.
You're the ones that they're marketing this to, where it's people are like, this is so bad, but I can't stop watching
it. And honestly, dude, if when I put in like the hashtag for After We Fell on Twitter, it was a lot of people like me who were like, oh, this is so bad, but I've gotten this far, so I might as well just finish it out.
I might as well just watch the next one.
Yeah, and I was like,
the next one? I'm dying for it. Give it to me.
my friend was like, you should have stopped after we collided. I was like, I know, but it ended like on a legit cliffhanger, and I was like, I can't, like, I gotta know if Harden and Tessa.
You gotta send me this. You gotta send me this movie, because the second I watch the first one, I'm gonna be like, send me the next 7.
I feel like either you're gonna be like, Gaius, this is really awful. I can't believe you watched like
I'm gonna watch 30 minutes and be like, I already turned it off.
I can't believe you watched 3 more after these. And then like, are you just gonna be like, well, I'm interested enough to know more. We'll see. But yeah,
I already went there.
So like, here's the deal. The thing, when you love movies and stuff like that, you can't always watch the good ones. Sometimes, the bad, like, I mean, I watched all the 50 Shades of Grey movies hoping they get better, and they never did. I watched all the Twilight because I think there's a good idea.
The Twilight movies, hoping it would be good, and then I was like, where's the next one?
Like, and then it's just like, they're all bad. I remember after watching all the Twilight movies, someone was like, is there a good one? I was like, well, Eclipse is decent. No, not even decent. Really not. Like, but yeah, that's what happens sometimes. You get sucked into like stuff you really shouldn't watch. And
so I'm gonna quote my mom here right now, and she mostly mentioned this when she was talking about women, but she was saying, listen, it's just as important to find out what you don't like as it is to find out what you do like.
Very true.
Sometimes watching a bad movie will be like, yeah, I know what to stay away from. Right. But then also watching a good movie would be like, I mean, I will say something like Arrival, which you actually recently asked me if you could watch a movie for the rest of your life on repeat, and like you had to pick one. I picked Arrival like pretty quick. What did you say?
That's a great movie. I say Ferris.
You said E.T.
No, it was E.T. Well, I went
such a stupid answer.
I went nostalgic, and you were like, okay, well, cool.
I did something like I was like, no. Like, that's a terrible answer. No, but like Arrival really is one of the only movies that I've ever seen actually twice in a row. Like the second I finished it, I was, first of all, to all the listeners out there, I was in college Sunday, didn't have anything to do. I had already finished my homework, so study hard. But but I watched it twice in a row in one day. Only time I've ever done that. And it's still one of my favorite movies, if not my favorite movie. Because
it's a great movie.
I was not expecting it. Like,
yeah. Cerebral sci-fi movies like that are hard, right? They're hard to get right. Like they're one of the thought-provoking like science fiction movies.
That's why I try and give movies a chance, because like I like even like Annihilation. Like I saw the trailer and I was like, this looks fucking weird.
Yeah.
I had just watched it again 3 days ago, and it was amazing.
It's a great movie. It's a great movie. Really, yeah. You know what about Arrival? I'm still personally offended that Amy Adams did not get nominated for that movie. Like honestly, she got nominated. She got nominated for.
Renner deserves something.
Yeah, he was. You know what? And like I don't know the quote exactly, but he made a good point when that movie came out. Is that his job was to in that movie was to support her and prop her up as an actress, and like he like this is her movie. Like this is like my job.
If that's what he thought, he did it perfectly.
Yeah, he was like, this is her movie. This is her moment. This is like, she's the lead. Like, I'm just here to like,
dude, he
be there for her.
Very well.
And like, I thought that was like a really nice thing to say. Like, we're like, no, this is like her role. And like, this is like her moment. And like, I thought that was really cool. And it is, and you actually do notice that when you're watching it. Like and
also at the same time, like, he's not wrong. Like he probably saw like the script and saw like what direction they were making with this movie. And it's like, it's going to be centered around her. So his role is to make her look fucking amazing.
Right.
But also compliment her, to like challenge her, put her in certain situations, like anything like that.
Yeah,
he did fantastic. I mean, that's a movie that I would put in my top 5 of all time.
By the way, to piggyback what you said earlier, I'm kind of wishing I just would have lied and be like, yeah, I said Ferris Bueller instead of you remembering like E.T.
Instead of E.T.
No, like to everyone here, like when I said E.T., it was like a look of like, really?
There was the consensus of a groan. It was just like, oh, really?
And then I tried to back it up, and I was like, it's a great movie.
Like, no. But Steven Spielberg, but like the moonshot, like, come on, dude, like seriously. And I was like,
how you not feel things when you're watching that? You're fucking bike fly and everything.
That's gave me like 3 moments in the movie, and I was like, yeah, now.
Yeah, you're like, no.
Pick a different one.
It was very great. All right.
Our podcast right now. Pick a different one that you'd watch forever.
I love so many movies though, man.
I know.
You know what? You know what? I will say this, and this is not like my favorite movie, but I talked to you about this movie before. I probably The Perks of Being a Wallflower. I still think it resonates like pretty. Yeah, it's that's another. Well, really I won't say it's all heavy because there is some funny stuff in it, but like it really. Because when I was in high school, when I was a freshman, I had a lot of friends who were seniors, and so I could relate to that right away. And like so like that feeling of like you meet these cool people and then like they're gonna be gone in a year and then you have like 3 more years of like doing this kind
figuring
of
it
stuff.
out.
And like that kind of something as simple as that still resonates no matter how old you are, I think.
I think it has the perfect amount of ebb and flow where it's like if you're gonna watch a movie for the rest of your life forever, never again, it has the perfect amount of sadness, happiness, joy, fear, unexpectedness, suspense, like got every emotion kind of tied up into one. So
I can't say like Halloween, even though I love Halloween, but I can't be like, I want to watch Halloween for the rest of my life.
But imagine watching that even 3 times in one night. It's like,
like God,
again, I know how he gets murdered. It's a knife.
It's a knife. Yeah, there she goes. She's running across the street again.
There's blood. There's blood.
She's screaming. There's that signature Jamie Lee Curtis scream. Yeah.
No, but like I honestly think that's actually a great choice. It makes me really think about like the psychological aspects of watching movies where like what emotions am I trying to feel? Right. Obviously with horror movies, they're trying to get like excitement and heart pumping and fear and thrill out of you.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
But with Perks of Being a Wallflower, it's like they're kind of getting everything out of you. Like in terms of like you feel sadness, you feel loss, you feel
like there's
gain,
it's all
like,
in there. Yeah.
That's why dramas are always my favorite, where it's because they kind of give you every sort of emotion, but all wrapped in a different type of package. Like it's all wrapped into like you should feel this way because of this and feeling that way because I mean at the end of the day they're all just storytelling. They're telling a story that you should feel some sort of emotion to.
Right.
And with dramas, especially like Perks of Being a Wallflower, honestly, like that's a fantastic choice.
Yeah, I mean,
like you're getting all those emotions.
You get everything that you need from it, and like I think that, you know, it can be a tough one too, because it's like, I like dramas as well.
Sad.
I mean, it's sad, right? I love dramas too, right? And like the biggest argument I've had with people who are fans of movies, or like casual fans of movies, is if I recommend something that's too heavy, they don't want to watch it, because they're like, a lot of people look at movies as an escape, right? So you're escaping from like, you know, whatever serious is going on in your life. But then sometimes you watch something that's grounded in reality, and it might be something you're going through. It might make you feel like, oh well, I'm not going through it nearly as bad as like I thought. Or you get kind of like, you get all of that kind of out sometimes when you watch something that is relatable to you in some level.
If a movie makes me cry, like 100%, I'm gonna watch it again no matter what. Like I have this. It evoked an emotion in me that I couldn't help. Like I cried outwardly, and like that's not always the kind of thing that you bring some buddies over to come watch.
Right. So, no, that's true. Unless you really trust your buddy, like, all right, I might tear up if we watch this.
So I know I'm already spoiling it again, but like rapid fire around, what movies made you cry? Closer was one of the ones that made me cry, man. Like there's some really sad moments in that, and like it's a serious fucking movie.
Yeah,
it's also amazing, and it's
really also well really well written too. I mean, like
really well written. Because
I love that.
I don't like movies that are so scripted where you can tell. Gone Girl.
Yeah, you talked about that before.
But I love movies that they sound scripted, but they also sound realistic, which is, I think, closer. Like Clive Owen, I will say, deserves every credit he got in that, because he did.
Yeah, him and Natalie Portman were nominated for that, and like I think all four of them were great in it. But I think that they were the two strongest of the four in that movie.
Dude, it honestly, watching that movie, and I think it actually is a testament to this actor, what's his name? The guy who plays Watson in Sherlock Holmes.
Jude
Law.
Yeah.
Made me fucking hate him. Because he was such a fucking piece of shit.
Yeah.
He was so... like he didn't care about either of these women.
Yeah, and that goes back to like our point, right?
At all,
because all four of them are fucked up too. I think like, because Alice,
they're all bad people.
Well, Alice is like a liar because she lies about who she is. But like, I think she's one of those people that like, once she was happy in the situation, that was honest. I think that when she was with Jude Law, she loved him, and she was willing to do whatever she could to like keep him. And then he meets Julia Roberts, and Julia Roberts' character is fucked up too. Like, she finally gets Jude Law, and then she's like, well, I have to go sign these divorce papers. And she knew, she kind of knows Clive Owen's character already. Like, yeah, you're going to sign the divorce papers, but he's also going to get you to have sex with him one last time, because he knows when he finds out, that's the one thing he's going to think about. Like, the last time that you were with me.
Yeah.
So they're all a little fucked up, but I agree with you. Like, when it comes to Jude Law is just really selfish. Like, the way he like kind of is like, well, I'm breaking up with you, and like I've been sleeping with her this long,
but
and like
at the same time, it's like the movie does a really, really, really good job of only showing us the times of strife. So like we actually don't know the good times.
Oh, how happy they were!
We don't trust any of the characters because we've never seen them when they've been the best of themselves.
Right.
We don't know what it was like when it was good. All we see is like this sense of like turmoil where it's like it's already it's on the fridge, it's on the fringe,
it's like whatever it is. You have to like read in between the lines. Like, it's just like, okay, well.
And then I even told you I was like, wait, am I missing something? Because we jumped ahead like a decade.
It is kind of abrupt, right? Because like when Jude Law first meets Natalie Portman after she has an accident.
Yeah, because I remember like the first thing, because he said he was with someone, and I was like, wait, are we ever gonna meet like his girlfriend? He's like, no.
Yeah.
You're like, no. They just get together, and like, get together. Figure out it from there, and I was like, okay.
Yeah, and then there's like the time
reverse a little bit.
Yeah, there's like a time jump because like he's talking to Alice about how wants to write a book, and then by the time we jump to that next scene where he's getting his photo taken by Julia Roberts,
it's immediate.
The book's already it's already, so you have to fill in all the blanks of like what that relationship was like and how they end up
now
here.
I have to believe this is like 5 years later or whatever it is.
Yeah, but still, really well written and really well done.
It's a fantastic movie.
you could tell
Jerker, it's
You can tell it's based on the play too. Cause it's all dialogue. It's like very dialogue heavy.
And that's what I love about a lot of movies is the fact that it's all in the dialogue. And like action goes, like Marvel movies are based on action.
Yeah.
Yes, there's some funny dialogue. Yes, there's some good things here and there, but it's based off of the CGI action that you get. And to find a movie that can grip you, hold you on the edge of your seat. I'll put Nocturnal Animals up there as one of those same ones where it just grips you at the edge of your seat because of what they're saying, not because of what they're doing.
Exactly. That. I love that movie. I need to watch that again too. That's a lot of people haven't seen that either. That's another one where they're like, oh
Nocturnal Animals.
Yeah, like I'm like, dude, it's got a really good cast too. Like, I thought it was great. Amy Adams, another great movie that she.
The thing is, though, it's a dark movie. Like,
it's really dark.
Watch it on a whim.
No, you're right. You're right. You can't be like, yo, let's come over. Can we watch like Nocturnal Animals? Like, all right, I guess.
And that's why. Okay, I sorry to the listeners out here, but another question that Gaius asked me on the rapid fire: should theaters stay open? Yes, because of movies like that. It's like,
yeah.
When else are you gonna see it? Like, are you gonna watch Schindler's List? Like, if you've never seen it, just on like a random Thursday night, probably not. Because it's like super fucking deep. But are you gonna go pay some money to go and get some popcorn, some drinks, soda, and go and sit in the theater and see it? Yes, definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
That's why they should stay open. 100%.
I agree. Oh well, we can hop into some really quick news items, just to kind of get your takes on some of these.
Yeah, let's hear it. Hit me.
So first, I'm gonna ask you, like, how do you feel about not just sequels, but like sequels to comedies? Because I feel like a lot of the times they don't really stick the landing, or they're not nearly as good as like the originals. Sometimes we get lucky and we get like a 22 Jump Street, and that's funny. And I thought it was just as good.
Funny, you took the words out of my mouth. I was picking like my top 3 wins, top 3 losses, and 22 Jump Street was on my wins list.
Yeah, and then like sometimes you get one that's like okay, but it's just like a rehash of the first movie. I feel that way about The Hangover 2, which is like it's funny.
And then The Hangover 3 is just like a straight like guttural punch to the franchise that made it die.
Yeah, for whatever 22 Jump Street, there's also like Zoolander 2 and Anchorman 2, like where they don't hit as well.
I would say Anchorman 2 is passable. It's not good, but it's passable.
It actually isn't as bad as like I remember, because it was actually on TV not too long ago.
There are some jokes that they say on there that I quote, like not regularly, but
yeah. And I think if people looked at you like, where's that from? Like Anchorman 2, like, why don't you quote?
If someone said that to me, I'd say they're my friend, and we have to change friend groups.
Well, I asked about
and the fact that you know that should not be allowed.
I asked about the comedy sequels because Justin Long, who was in Dodgeball, recently said that Vince Vaughn has a really good pitch.
That's the one you're crediting him for? Justin Long from Dodgeball.
Because we're talking about Dodgeball. Sorry. Well, because we're talking about Dodgeball. Because he's in Dodgeball. I said it wrong.
So Dodgeball they're making a sequel to Dodgeball.
No. Well, not necessarily. He said that Vince Vaughn has a really good pitch for a sequel. Everyone is on board for it except for Ben Stiller,
Lance Armstrong,
who is very, who's very. I guess he's worried because it's been so long since the first one came out, and a lot of people love the first Dodgeball. I get it, like you don't want to like mess up a good thing. He just thinks it's like kind of risky. He was actually on Justin Long's podcast saying like, I don't want to like shit on something that people really loved, and like and you know what, he knows a thing about making not good sequels, because he did Zoolander 2. So like but would you want to see a sequel to Dodgeball, or do you think it's kind of like too late for that to happen?
I think it's too late. It's too late.
I think so too.
I think that it's been sailed for at least 10 years. Like, I mean, at this point, that is a cult classic, and you do not want to ruin something as viable, like even just the IP of Dodgeball itself should not be ruined by a sequel. Because like you can, like, I'm guessing they're gonna bring like some fucking flip phone in there to get some marketing shit. Like it could be a total disaster. Yeah, and I think that it would be better to just kind of leave it alone, let it be the movie that it is. I mean, even Jerry Seinfeld said this in the Between Two Ferns episode with Zach Galifianakis. He was like, listen, don't you think that if The Hangover was just that movie itself, it would be considered one of the best comedies of all time?
Right. That's true.
But the fact that you made 2 and 3, now they're just kind of like a laughing stock. They're just like, oh yeah, the Hangover movies.
It does.
Instead of being something like Superbad, which is like,
which they say they'll never make a sequel to.
In the hall, like, it's on the Mount Rushmore of comedy.
Seth Rogen said that
the Hangover would have been on that if they hadn't made shitty fucking sequels.
I agree. I think Seth Rogen has said out of all the movies that he's been a part of, everyone asks about a sequel to Superbad, and he's just like, never. There was never one. There was never going to be one in the first place, and he has the same response that like Ben Stiller has about like, well, this is such a good thing that I don't want to risk like fucking it up. And like, just to put a timestamp on this for people, it's been 18 years since Dodgeball came out. I think it's way too late to capitalize on anything. I mean, I understand, like, someone tried to tell me today.
Okay, like, the thing is, like, you said something about Top Gun. Top Gun had
I'm glad you said that, because people were saying like, well, legacy sequels happen all the time. I was like, well, that's different.
Comedy's different, man. Comedy is different. Comedy is infinitely different than making an action movie.
Yeah, I think it works for action movies.
Making a sequel to a comedy movie, you have to know the comedy of the time, which is infinitely different than it was in even the early 2000s.
And not to take anything away, right? Because like, I still think Dodgeball is hilarious, but like, those guys, I mean, I feel like with a lot of those people that are that came up around then, like the Vince Vaughns and all that stuff, they had their like time where like they kind of ruled those kind of movies, and then like humor changes, and then you get more people that step in, and you get like the Seth Rogans of the bunch, and then you have Judd Apatow making movies, and like it all kind of like changes. And I think that people of today can watch
and that change can happen within 2 years. Like, that change can happen,
let alone fucking 18. So like, it's a lot has changed, where it's like different. Like it would, I'd be concerned that it would just flop. Like,
even if you got, dude, the Motorola Razr wasn't even invented.
Yeah, it's like ridiculous.
That's how different comedy has changed too.
Right. And like you said, like, I think the legacy sequel stuff works for action movies. It clearly works for horror movies. They were able to bring Scream back after a hiatus. Because there's not much you have to change. It's a different type of emotion you have to evoke. Yep. Making people laugh, that takes a lot. Yeah, and you know, like I said, the track. I mean, our friend Tanner, actually, when I put something about that on Instagram last week, and he was like, well, screw you, what if it's good? Like, I want it if it's good. I was like, but the track record with these sequels for comedies is that most of them are so bad. Are not as good as they were.
Space Jam 2 probably have the same length of time.
Yeah, and like, I didn't need that.
Failed.
No one I didn't ask for it. And that was one of those movies that they had talked about making for a long time. So there was like a lot of like talk about a sequel to Space Jam and just finding the right person.
One of the best sequel comedies recently, I would say, is Neighbors 2, because they kind of kept it pretty much the exact same as the first movie.
It's not as good as the first movie, but I think it holds up decently enough. And I like the whole thing.
But it does a good job. Yeah,
throwing the sorority thing in there, I thought that was kind of like at least a cool way to kind of.
And the thing that's funny is, like, they're actually realistic about that. Like, sororities can't throw parties, and the girls are like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, basically,
this is bullshit.
Yeah. All right, so we are both nay on a sequel to Dodgeball. It's way too late.
I'm gonna put my knock on nay. No.
And by the way, I think Justin Long's great. Like, I want to support him getting in more movies because I think he's a really funny actor.
Favorite Justin Long performance? Go.
Oh shit, that's not bother me though, right? I like Jeepers Creepers though, but that's like, I'm a horror guy, so like, he's really good in that.
You'd say that?
Yeah, I'll go with Jeepers Creepers. Yeah, he's really good in that.
Okay. My favorite Justin Long performance, and I've been dying to say this publicly, Zach and Mary Make a Porno. His cameo as...
I forgot about that, yeah.
Brandon is the best cameo, I think, of all time.
I forgot about that, yeah.
That is the best performance of a cameo actor in the history of cinema, I think.
Yeah.
that is my
I've totally forgot about it, yeah. He's also I
act in movies with an all-male cast, like Glenn Ross. More erotic. with less women. No women, in fact.
I forgot all
I'm
about
sorry
that.
if I'm out of line, but are you in gay porn? Guilty as charged.
I haven't watched that movie in a while either. I got to
dude,
some of these down.
that's my favorite Justin Long moment, and I think the best cameo of all time. Like, actually close to second with the Keanu Reeves one in Maybe Be My Maybe. Is that what it's called?
Oh, Always Be My Maybe.
Always Be My Maybe.
My Maybe. Yeah.
That's a close.
A lot of people have
cameo.
loved that cameo. Actually, that is a really solid cameo.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Also, Justin Long retweeted one of my tweets because I actually put like 4 pictures of him up on Twitter, and I was like, "This guy is a reliable presence if he's in your horror movie," because he was in Drag Me to Hell, he's in Barbarian, he's in Jeepers Creepers, and he was in Tusk. So I just put that together, and he retweeted it, and I was like, I thought that was cool. I was like,
dude,
he
nice,
he clearly is like he's a Scream King at this point. Like, he's been in a bunch of been a very reliable presence in like a lot of horror movies.
He's a beast. I love Justin Long.
He's amazing.
Justin Long is Back to the Blockbuster approved 100%.
Yes. Even though, we can just say that. Yeah, we don't have to dedicate an episode to him, but
he's approved. He's
approved.
That's it. All it takes is 2 stamps. Done to go.
All right. So this next one, I know we've talked about this guy a lot on the podcast back in the day, but Dwayne Johnson, of course, has Black Adam out. It's been number 1 for the last 3 weeks, mostly because nothing else is out right now. There's been a big debate over whether or not it is financially successful, especially based on like the budget and how much promotion it got, especially from him. He was everywhere promoting it. So right now it is running 14% ahead of Hobbs and Shaw. They're using that as a comparison because they opened around the same amount. It's made $137 million here. It's about to get kneecapped completely by Black Panther this weekend. So it enjoyed 3 weeks on its own. It's made over 330 million worldwide, but I was reading somewhere that Warner Brothers thinks it needs to make at least 475 million worldwide, and that's the low end to break even and get a sequel. And the big problem for Black Adam right now is that it's banned in China. It has no release date in China, and that is a huge market for any movie. But I don't know. I think it has a lot to do with that. They were pretty bad about that kind of stuff over there. And that's a big market in general, but it's also a big market for our boy The Rock. He's really big over there. There was a lot of talk about how this movie was gonna, like he said, change the hierarchy of like DC, and he did a lot of great things to promote it. I think he is single-handedly responsible for even getting Henry Cavill back into this stuff. So like there's a lot of goodwill that clearly this was a passion project for him. But I think at the end of the day, like, they're gonna say like a lot of money got left on the table as far as like how successful it could have been. Like, I don't think it's not gonna top 200 million here, and we're just talking about its budget being $200 million. That doesn't even factor in marketing costs and all that too.
It probably cost them, I mean, 400 million to sell this movie.
And like, he has so many plans. Of course, there's supposed to be a Black Adam 2. He wants to do like a Superman versus Black Adam movie. Like, he is very much like, heavily involved with DC. And like, we have talked about before about how like DC was going through like a weird, growing pains phase. But like, now they have James Gunn. James Gunn now in charge of like the film division, along with like Peter Safran. So Peter Safran is going to do like the business part, and James Gunn is going to be in charge of like the creative part, and that's a good direction to go in. But like, to have your first, this is supposed to be like a good example of like, okay, this is where DC can go now. This is how big they can get. And I think the big problem was it got really bad reviews, but not from regular people. The audience score is like 90% on Rotten Tomatoes, but it has a 40% on Rotten Tomatoes.
People like it.
So it still hasn't changed the whole like DC gets bad reviews unless it's like Batman related. So it hasn't really changed all that. I hate, like, when we do box office, I hate calling a certain movie a flop, but like, it seems, I'm not gonna call it a flop. I just feel like more money could have been made here.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because, I mean, The Rock has so much pull when it comes to box office tickets, and he historically has made gajillions of dollars, even for something like Skyscraper. So to see this movie kind of, I don't even want to say dwindle, but like kind of be below a box office masterpiece is a little bit surprising. I actually still haven't seen it.
I liked
but
it.
From what you said it was good. The commercials look amazing. The trailers look fantastic. Like I'm dying to see it, but we don't have DC Plus. We have Disney Plus. So, so
you gotta wait for it to hit HBO Max. Yeah,
I know. but at the same time, it's like, I think that this is actually sort of a testament to why, like, DC has consistently failed. So people, like, the public doesn't trust them. People aren't going to see it.
I think that has a lot to do with it.
Because they just expect it to not be good. And so instead of people going to a Marvel movie where even if it's bad, Thor, Love and Thunder, but like even if it's like bad, people are going to go see it, and it's going to make money. $700 million. It's going to make that. But because they have a good track record with DC, people are not expecting a good movie. They saw Morbius and they're like, I'm not going to the theater again. And like, even though it's The Rock, like The Rock's bringing them in, but I don't think that he can save this IP. He can't save DC himself.
I think it's a test. I thought when this movie came out, it was going to be like a big testament of his like pull as like a, not just like a performer, but like as a promoter. Because no one. I mean, I guess Tom Cruise promotes like his ass off, but I was saying, like, if I was a movie studio, I would love for Dwayne Johnson to promote my movie, because he goes everywhere and above and beyond to do it. I think a lot of the problem too is that a lot of people don't know who Black Adam is. I noticed from talking to other people, there was like a lot of confusion of like what's the difference between like him and Shazam, because they both say that in order to like transform or whatever. There was that. And I think the critic reviews didn't help in the beginning, like opening weekend. I think other people started to check it out subsequent weekends, but like I think the start wasn't big enough. Like, it came in at tracking at $70 million and it made $67 million opening weekend. I thought it was going to do a lot better than that. It is pretty good. I just thought it was going to be bigger than that.
That's
but like,
pretty accurate response.
Yeah, and like I said, I liked it. I think I could tell while watching it why critics didn't like it, because there isn't much of a story, but it is highly entertaining. It's from start to finish.
No, there's never a story in DC movies. That's why they fail, man. There's no actual there's no narrative that you can actually latch onto and be like, I care about these characters. Not at all.
Yeah, and like I think that's the problem. I think they don't have enough goodwill yet. They had Wonder Woman, and that was good, but then they made that sequel, and then that was bad, and then Aquaman wasn't great either. Like, they haven't had,
it was a fluke, but that was a fluke, man. Wonder Woman was a fluke.
I think so.
Like they made a good movie, and they're like, holy fuck, we did something good for once.
Yep.
And then they tried to recreate it, and they tried to do something along those lines, and they failed. Yeah,
didn't work.
None of these have worked at all. None of these have worked. No.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it goes to show you, like, even someone like, I mean, The Rock has been in movies that have not done well. I mean, like, he doesn't have a perfect track record. But like, I have to wonder, because like what he promotes on his Instagram is like, hey, it's the #1 movie in the world 3 weeks in a row. Like, yeah, it is. But if you look at the numbers, like, you like really look at the numbers, it's like, well, it's just kind of there.
Nothing else is being showed,
and nothing else is out right now. Like, it's like you have no competition.
The second Black Panther comes out, it's going to destroy.
Yeah, I imagine that. Okay, so in its second weekend,
it's going to be 200. I think 212 million.
Yeah, like weekend. that opening weekend's gonna be insane. I mean, I imagine they'll be like, well, there's our new superhero movie that's out, and then Black Adam is gonna like kind of fall. Yeah, if you would have asked me, like,
it's gonna be a forgettable movie because it comes out before Black Panther.
yeah. I mean and I'm sure, like, we talked before about like egos and stuff. I'm sure like he has an ego, right? So he has to really, I know you're saying like, yo, I have the #1 movie in the world, but like in his mind, he has to be like, oh, this could be doing better. Like, this could have been doing a lot better. But I mean, like, I can't see them, even if it grosses less than it's supposed to. I can't imagine him walking into the offices at Warner Brothers and them being like, yeah, that Black Adam sequel, we're not going to do it. I can't imagine them being like, nah, well, your movie didn't make enough money.
How can you tell The Rock that you're not like, he's not going to make you $500 million.
Right, exactly. So you know what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen is when it comes out on like Blu-ray, when it comes out on HBO Max, they're gonna pay attention to all that too, and be like, all right, well, here's some extra money being made, revenue, and then of course when they greenlight the sequel, there'll be like a little blurb about how like, oh, they did so well, like, you know, it had a good run in theaters, but when it came out like on HBO Max and all the Blu-ray sales, they're gonna like talk about that and like, you know, and spin it a bit.
There's going to be some talk no matter what.
Yeah. I do want to shout this out really quick because we were just talking about box office. And you know, I love horror movies. There was like just a shout out to milestones for horror movies because this is like crazy that they're making this much money right now. But Smile just made $200 million worldwide as of yesterday.
That's crazy. That is insane.
As of yesterday, budgeted at $17 million. It was going to be sent straight to Paramount Plus until they test screened it, and they were like, "Hey, people like it." And now it is at $99.1 million here. It's going to cross $100 million in the States this week.
Do you think there was a void in horror? Like, I feel like
2022 has been a really good year for it.
I feel like 2022, people were like dying for horror, like Dahmer, like horror.
Yeah, it started earlier in the year too. Like
dying for some gruesome shit. I feel like
it started earlier in the year too. Like January, that's when Scream came out. Scream made a lot of money. And that's also Paramount.
Did pretty
Black
well.
Phone did make a lot of money. You had like another one that did Barbarian. I mean, gross less than some of these, but $4.5 million budget.
Money.
Yeah, it made over $40 million on a $4.5 million budget. Terrifier 2 is another one that is
dude, I love that story. I'm so glad you brought that up.
So
the fact that they're making people watch it for the Oscars is incredible.
They're making people watch it. I mean, I love that too. That like people are going to get sent this movie like as a screener to like watch for like Oscar consideration.
They have to. It's their job.
The story behind it, like, it was basically funded by fans and also helped funded by Bloody Disgusting, which is like a horror movie website. $250,000 to make it. It's grossed over $10 million. That seems low to some people, but no, in relation to budget,
that's a 10-to-1 return. You would always say yes to a 10-to-1 return.
Yeah,
no matter what.
And then lastly, too, Halloween Ends crossed $100 million at the worldwide box office, and that's with being extremely polarizing with fans because some people love it and some people hate it.
That's a great return.
But yeah, on a $30 million budget. So like, I mean, I think for a lot of time,
it's the year for horror. It's the year for horror, man.
And then you have the ones that maybe didn't make a ton of money, but they also got great reviews. Like X and Pearl
It's going to continue. I think that this is just like the start. This is the blooming of a beautiful horror chapter that we're about to have.
I think so too.
And I hope so, because it's like, it shows that you can really tell a great, sometimes gory story with $1 million.
Yeah,
you don't have to do something. I mean, that's how Paranormal Activity kind of got their fucking shine. They made something for like $300,000, and they made the $150 million.
Made for no money at all. And like the funny about that movie, the first one was sitting on the shelf for like a while. And this was when Paranormal Activity,
everyone's doing like point of view camera videos. Like everyone. Yeah.
And that movie was housed at DreamWorks. And so the person that actually found Paranormal Activity just sitting on the shelf was the person who helped ran DreamWorks, and that was Steven Spielberg. He watched it and was like, "Why is this sitting on a shelf and not being like released?"
Steven Spielberg just like picked up a random cassette tape. He was like, Paranormal Activity, and was like, "This is going to begin."
He was like, "Why has no one released this? Like, why is this just?" And it was sat on the shelf for almost 2 years, and then and then they figured out a brilliant way to market it, and that first movie was like, if you want to see this in your city, you have to request it. That's how they initially like promoted it. And super smart. They made a lot of money off of it. I think horror in general is
over $100 million. Over $100 million.
Horror is just cheap to make, and I think too, like, I think with the pandemic and like people were going back to the movie theaters, I think studios saw like the people that are going to the movies are younger people that aren't afraid to go, and horror is just horror's always been a younger skewing genre in general.
Yeah,
and I think that's why there's this new renaissance of them where it's just like, they don't cost a lot of money to make, and then like if you're lucky, you get a really good one.
There haven't really been, I mean, the last good ones in the last 10 years, Sinister, The Conjuring. It's like how many have there really been that have been good?
They've been really good.
Like they're really like I can name maybe 5.
Yeah,
and that's sad for the last 12 years.
And dude,
That's sad.
I'm a horror movie fan, as you know, but sometimes like
And they're all older. They're all older.
With Smile and Barbarian, when I went to go to Rotten Tomatoes to look at what they had, I mean, I was happily shocked, but I was like, Barbarian has a 90 what? I was like, are you serious? And then like Smile had like an 80 something percent. Like you have to like when you're a horror fan, you have to take those like wins because sometimes horror movies are like like 20%, but I liked it. Like they're not made for everybody. But yeah, I just wanted to shout out that it's a really good time for those type of movies, and also exposing a lot of like unknown filmmakers to people now. The guy who directed Barbarian, I mean, he made one or two other movies that weren't even that big, and now like he's being sought after to do a lot of stuff now. Parker Finn, who did Smile, is another one. He's pitched another horror movie to Paramount that they're probably going to pick up. So like, it's cool that they're like these newer filmmakers are like coming out and making a lot of these movies, and
it's so good to see, man, because like that's what you want, is to find someone who has this talent, and a lot of times they don't get noticed until they've already kind of been past their prime, or like they've already done a lot of stuff, and then they kind of get pigeonholed into something for money. And like now it's great to see the fact that like they make something great and people are like, you have talent. Let's do something with you.
And the cool thing about these younger filmmakers making these horror movies, or even, I won't just say horror movies, like just movies in general, like younger filmmakers are like making these movies as if they're kind of like, I feel like they almost approach them like they're still making like their shorts that they used to make when they were in school. Like they have so much like, I guess passion for it, and you can kind of feel that. I think like when a director has worked for so long, it doesn't happen all the time, but for some of them, I think they get jaded and like they kind of lose love for it a little bit.
Your mindset becomes skewed by sort of what everyone else has been telling you, especially within the industry. Whereas when you're a new one, when you're a new director, you're just like, I'm gonna do whatever the fuck I want. I'm gonna make what picture that I'm gonna make. So like, let's go. I agree. This is what I'm looking for. Do this.
Yeah, I agree. And we already touched on Westworld getting canceled. The only cool thing about this story, I mean, not cool. I mean, I stopped watching it after season 2 because I kind of felt like it. I loved the first season, even though I thought it was like deliberately slow, and I was like, all right, but still, it's well made. So like, I'll
it's not.
It's like it's not. And I like the actors a lot. I do feel bad for fans who kept watching because I heard it ended on a cliffhanger. I mean, they didn't resolve everything. Yeah, and that's a shitty thing. I mean, but HBO looked at it this way. Apparently, by season 3, it was $100 million to produce the show. The ratings had dropped a lot, and the interesting thing though is that the actors had like a pay or play contract, so they were already paid. They're getting paid for season 5, even though there will be no season 5. So it was actually cheaper for so the salary payout for all the actors was between $10 to $15 million for everyone. So HBO was like, we rather take that loss than take $100 million. Yeah. Wow. The interesting about someone asked me what a pay or play contract is. Basically, it's like when you have big actors, and usually it's when actors like kind of moonlight on TV, but they're really like movie stars. You do that to secure them because they're busy and they're going to be working on other stuff.
Like a retainer.
Yeah. So like they an actor will be like, all right, I'll carve out this time, but I want to get paid for it because I'm carving out the time in case this happens. And they carved out the time, but it's not going to happen. So they're still going to get their season 5 paid
time. Their proverbial time.
Yeah. So this includes the lead. So it's Ed Harris, Evan Rachel Wood, Danny Newton,
Aaron Paul.
Aaron Paul. Yeah. So like they're all going to get paid for their work. But the good thing about all those people is that they either have done other TV shows or have done movies. They're all
successful.
They're all very successful. Yeah. I do feel bad though when shows end without resolution. I mean, even though I stopped watching it, it does suck when you're like, you happen to be that fan that's invested, and then
I was an invested fan of Westworld. Loved season 3. I thought it was a great addition to add Aaron Paul in. Really kind of put a very dystopian view on sort of like how the world works even now with technology and like what people are expecting of you. But season 4 was almost an exact replica of season 3 with not much difference, just like a few changes here and there. Just
like repetition.
The twists were obvious, and it wasn't like a like I'm dying to see the next episode because I don't know what's going on. Whereas like the first 3 seasons, I had a lot of that. I was just like, I was enthralled. I was locked in. This last one, I was just like, yeah, like is what it is. It's Westworld. I kind of know it's just like people shooting human-looking robots, and we don't know which ones are which, and that's the whole point of the show. Woo.
Exactly. And I also, I also think HBO looked at like they've had all this success lately with like House of the Dragon. They're like, well, we got that's doing really well. On the other end of the spectrum, they have something like Euphoria that does really well too, even though they probably never thought it would do
they thought that might have been a crapshoot.
Yeah, and like, you know, it's their I think up until House of the Dragon, they were saying that it was their most successful show after Game of Thrones, which is Euphoria? Like so, yeah, which is that's so crazy. So like, but I want to point out the key difference though is that Euphoria definitely came up in the period of like being able to stream it, watching online. There's a lot of factors that go into like how it's watched, but it is their most. It is like I heard it's like the most tweeted about show on television too. Whenever it airs, so it kind of like it broke into that. I mean,
it's about teenagers that aren't teenagers. The actors are young adults and they're all hot.
Yeah, like when you started watching it, I remember I told you
everyone's hot like, in that show.
I was like, I also was like, HBO tried to like play stupid. They're like, this young people aren't watching it. It's on at like 9 or 10 o'clock. And then they would like send out numbers. Every young person is watching it.
18 years old and above is watching that show.
Every young person is watching it. So then they were like, oh well, I mean, so we start putting disclaimers ahead of
billions of us. There's a lot of us. Yeah, there's a lot of us.
Yeah, I was like, thought that was so funny that they tried to lie. I'm like, nah, man, it's on too late. They're not watching it. Like, of course they are. Of course they fucking are. All right, so
it's basically like it's a recreation of what people think high school is, but it really isn't. Like that there's no way like that kind of shit actually happens.
If I went to high school like that, I wouldn't survive. I don't think.
Yeah, seriously. And like there are like situations like that happen in high school, like
or you have like kids or like there are kids or
whatever, but it's not like that. Like that's
definitely the people in high school that I knew that were like addicted to drugs in high school. So that does happen. I mean, like it. Yeah. You know, it's a very heightened reality.
But it's not like that. It's not like that.
And and I think too, like going back to your original point from a while ago, like I remember when you text me. You were like, after you watched like a few episodes, and you were like, everyone on this show is just so fucked up. Like every single person. I was like, every single person
is making terrible choices.
Like nobody is like, they're all awful.
God damn it!
It's fun.
Who am I rooting for? Yeah.
I mean, I guess you're supposed to be rooting for Rue, but then like, she's hard to root for too sometimes. Like
she's kind of a bitch and a terrible daughter and a terrible sister. Yeah, it's like there's some times where I'm just like, what are you doing? Come on.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, can't win them all, I guess.
Yep.
So we have a little fun thing to do to wrap things up. I sent Owen some little rapid fire movie questions that we're gonna bounce back and forth. I know we touched on some of them during the show, but we'll just kind of remind people what they are.
Yeah.
So the first one is
rapid fire.
Favorite action movie.
My most favorite recent action movie, Man from U.N.C.L.E.
Nice. We were just talking about that movie too.
But that's my most recent overall. Inception.
Okay. So it's always hard when it comes to like because I know there's like different types of action movies. Like it's like there's sci-fi action and all that stuff. There's
a lot of subcategories.
Yeah, right. So I just went for like a straight action movie. I always find Speed to be really, really good. I think and for something that came out in like 1994, I think it holds up like really, really well as an action movie.
It does.
And also using Keanu Reeves to his best abilities. And also really, I mean, Sandra Bullock had been in like a couple movies before that, but that introduced the world to Sandra Bullock and like her being one of the most likable actors still working today. So I think that's fun.
She hasn't had a scandal yet.
No, she's one of the few that doesn't seem to get in trouble. Like she plays the game well. Yeah, she's fine. Her and Julia Roberts, I mean, they should probably be in a movie together. I imagine they don't like each other because they have the same type of career.
Yeah.
All right. Favorite romantic comedy.
So my favorite romantic comedy, I chose This Is War, because it's a different take on an overall seriously cringy category that takes sort of like the same tropes where it's like meeting the family, there's always some awkwardness. This Is War kind of puts the awkwardness between the men rather than the guy and the girl, or like the guy and like the girl's family. And I actually appreciate that a lot, because
that was a fun reversal.
It makes it like a lot better. So that I would say that's my favorite romantic comedy.
That was a fun reversal to have it be like having the two dudes be the ones that are like fighting over like the girl in that kind of way. I also think Chelsea Handler is really funny in that movie too. As
oh my gosh, she's hilarious.
I went with an older one, not too old. Well, it's 25 years old. My Best Friend's Wedding is probably my favorite romantic comedy. It's Julia Roberts, Cameron Diaz, Dermot Mulroney, not to be confused with Dylan McDermott, and Rupert Everett. Also, I watched it recently because it just turned 25 in June, and it nice. Still holds up. It still holds up really well. Okay. And also like, you know, it's a funny one because like you hate Julia Roberts. Like you can't root for her because like she basically, like, her and her best friend, they said like if they don't find anyone to basically be with by the time they're 30, they'll marry each other. But then he ends up meeting Cameron Diaz, and he calls her and lets her know like, hey, like I'm marrying her and I want you to basically be my best man, because like she's his best friend. And she spends an hour and 45 minutes doing treacherous shit to break them up. So you have to, but like you're taking America's Sweetheart, right? And because she still has to be like, and then making her kind of the villain. And then you're kind of wondering like, okay, well, should she end up with him, or does Cameron Diaz? And Cameron Diaz is
she being a bitch.
Yeah, and Cameron Diaz is really good in it too, as being like, she kind of like ditzy but like really likable as well. I don't know. I thought it was cool that it kind of like, I guess when they test screened it, they had it where Julia Roberts ended up with him, and people hated that.
They're like, no, she's too much of
a bitch. And then they had another ending where she met a random guy at the wedding, and they were like, well, no.
Also weird.
So what they end up compromising on is that she has a gay best friend in the movie, and he shows up to the wedding and basically is like, hey, like you still got me, and like it was kind of like a sweet little thing between them, and that ending works the best.
There you go.
Yeah.
Nice.
Favorite scary movie.
I'm gonna go with Sinister.
Yeah, you know what? According to science, it's the scariest movie ever made, apparently.
So I think that it has the perfect delivery of jump scares, but also like it's a very cryptic dialogue. Like,
yeah,
I think Ethan Hawke does an amazing job, and there's enough build up to each like terrifying moment. But also there's some moments where I'm just like, oh, I was not expecting that. Like it's a great, I mean, it's a great roller coaster ride through the entire movie. And it scared the fuck out of me. It scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
Which I would say is the point of a horror movie. So it's probably my favorite up there. I think Conjuring's up there. Maybe the Strangers is probably top three.
Scary,
maybe
pretty scary.
But because The Strangers is just like about like they never even reveal what they were doing. It's just like
or why they're doing it.
Who are trying to kill you, and that's horrifying. That's scary.
That movie made knocking on doors scary. Like a lot of it is just like them banging on the doors outside. I was like, Jesus Christ.
They're like, what do you want? It's like nothing. Like, I'm not gonna answer you. I'm not gonna tell you.
Sinister has one of the best jump scares ever, by the way. There's that whole lawnmower thing where he's looking.
I saw you post it. That's what reminded me of it a little bit. The lawnmower jump scare. Yeah,
I felt like such a little bitch in the theater. I mean, everyone had the same reaction, but like it was insane. Favorite scary movie for me. That's no surprise. People who have listened, the original Halloween is still my favorite scary movie.
Halloween,
1978. John Carpenter, made for no money, but of course created a. Yeah, that's another good example where you said like do sequels like kind of tank the original. I think that's happened a little bit with Halloween, where there's been so many
though that you can't say that it's tainted because it's been tainted since 1980.
Yeah, when the first sequel came out. So like, but I always be like, yo, like you can say what you want about the franchise, but like the first movie is a very well made slasher movie. And also, I mean, it's weird to call it a slasher movie because there's
anyone who hasn't been tuning into our podcast for a long time, Gaius's favorite scary movie is Halloween. If you didn't know this, then welcome to our podcast.
Okay, and not Halloween, not Halloween 2018, not Halloween 2007 when Rob Zombie remade it. Halloween 1978. Just to clarify. So okay,
the actual original.
Okay, before I read this one, Owen filled these. We shared the notes on iPhone, and I read, I just read what you wrote. Yeah, what you said. So the question is, actor or actress you think is overrated, and I'll just let him say what he said.
So also to anyone who's never listened to our podcast, who I think is overrated, Joel Edgerton. And that's enough said. That's it.
Yeah,
that's
all he wrote was Joel Edgerton. Enough said. I
forgot that you could actually see that too. I just wrote this. This was all for myself, actually.
I was like dying. I was like, poor guy doesn't even get an explanation as to why he's overrated.
No, Joel Edgerton. That's it.
So, if you've listened to several episodes, actually, Owen has mentioned his like, it was up there with like. It was up there with his distaste for Zendaya.
Yeah, not for you.
But yeah, he would like we would talk about The Gift a lot. And I was like, yeah, but he's really good in that. And you're like, yeah, but like,
no,
yeah.
He ruins a lot of movies for me.
All right, I feel like I'm gonna get shit for saying this, because I do like him, but this is just I'm talking recently, like the last. Basically, since Iron Man, I'm gonna say Robert Downey Jr. and that's only just because lately.
What else has he done?
I mean, he just plays like the same. I've told you. I think I told you. I was character. He's been playing Tony Stark since he started playing Tony Stark. Yeah, like his Sherlock Holmes is basically Tony Stark with an accent, and like it's just like he used to be when he
person that knows everything.
Like when he was younger, I thought he was a great actor. I mean, I don't know how much he was acting back then because he was in a movie called Less Than Zero back in the day, and he played a drug addict, which probably wasn't really hard for him because he was definitely a drug addict back in the movie. Yeah. But he was so good and like raw back then. Like he actually like was like I feel like trying, and that's what I kind of miss. I mean, I'm not saying that the Tony Stark stuff is bad. It's just like when you do it in like other movies, like when you do like yeah, so I went with him. I know a lot of people love him, so I apologize. All right,
hot take case coming in.
A movie you hate that everyone seems to love.
All right, this is going to be my hot take too.
I just read it too. I was like, whoa.
Animal House. Yeah, I think I've actually said this before on the podcast, but like Animal House just doesn't make any sense to me. It's not an enjoyable movie. There's no point to it. Kevin Bacon's character is introduced and then forgotten immediately. Just true, absolutely no point to the movie. I don't enjoy it. I don't think the jokes are funny. I think that everyone sucks its dick for some reason, and I'm just like, you know what? Like, I'd rather just not watch that movie. I mean, which is crazy because a
lot of people love it.
It's apparently a comedy cult classic, so maybe I'm the one who's not funny.
So here's where I stand on that. I don't have an issue with it. I don't love it as much as everyone else does. Like I think it's fine. I think it's fine in the moment. I think John Belushi's funny. Like he was very hilarious. But yeah, it's not something like, and like, cause I have friends that grew up with that movie and love it, like really love it. And I've never, you almost feel like you just weren't invited to like the party. You're like, oh, I don't get why you guys love this so much.
It used to be the college movie. I'm like that. No.
Yeah. So I struggled with this one. I was going to pick one. I'm going to go with two because they're a little different. The first one I did was Napoleon Dynamite. I've never thought it was funny.
I like that a lot.
I remember when I first saw it, I thought that like I wasn't in on some like inside joke when everyone was laughing in theater. I was like, this is not funny. And I've tried to watch it several times since seeing it for the first time, and I just not for me. I think but a lot of people do love it, and I won't take that away from them.
I see you're like 2%. Is that what you think you're fat? Like there's certain lines in there that are really good.
I do like quesadilla. That's funny. I think that's the only thing I laughed at.
There's just like some just super dry humor. That's the whole point of it, which is what I love about it. Yeah.
This one, I mean, I don't know if everyone loves it. I mean, I think most people love it. I'm not a huge fan of Titanic. I've actually,
all right. Yeah.
I always get a lot of shit because I always like, oh, the last hour is decent, and they're like, yeah, when the shit sinks and everything, like there's action. Like I was like, the love story kind of sucks. The acting is not that great. They've all been better in other movies.
Yeah.
And I just never. I mean, it was. I get it was a phenomenon when it came out. I knew girls back then that saw that movie like 10 times in theaters, and it made a ton of money. It was the highest grossing movie of all time for like a long time.
A long time.
Yeah. If you're gonna watch early Leo, watch Romeo and Juliet or The Basketball Diaries or What's Eating Gilbert Grape. If you need your early Leo fix, watch that.
Watch those.
Watch that. I mean, not if you're trying to find Leo hot, I guess. Maybe not watch What's Eating Gilbert Grape.
Yeah.
If you're going for
Leo, don't watch that movie.
If you're going for early romantic Leo, don't watch that. But just like better movies with him, do that.
Yeah.
All right. When it comes to streaming, do you prefer one episode being released weekly or all episodes at once to binge?
Oh, dude, I might be flip-flopping on what I might have said before on this podcast, but I'm a binger. Give it to me all at once. I've had some shows that go week to week, and I've kind of lost interest. I mean, House of the Dragon, I just watched the finale like a couple days ago because
so you let them like build up and then watch.
Yeah, I like to kind of watch, like there are certain times where I like to watch TV, and it's usually when I have about 4 or 5 hours, like at the end of the night, where I'm not really doing anything, and I have some time to watch some shit, and like cruising and searching for something new every hour is exhausting. So to have a show that I'm interested in, that's why I'm rewatching The Witcher right now, because everything's come out. So I'm like kind of going through the first season again, which I haven't seen in 3 or 4 years, or whenever it first came out, whatever it was. Yeah. And no, it's good. I'd rather just kind of continue the story and revisit when I'm ready, rather than having to wait again for another week and then being like, oh, it's Tuesday, I forgot to tune in on Sunday when it came out at midnight.
Yeah.
It's like the times they come out is ridiculous. So I'd much rather just have the whole thing come out and then me watch it at my leisure.
I hate, like, I mean, I love The Boys, right? But they release their episodes, like they would release like 2 or 3 at once, and then weekly, like on a Friday.
The Boys is different. The Boys is the different one, because I fucking love that show. So like, release the first 2 and then making me wait. I'm waiting like that. That's different. They
also release it on a weird day. Like, I mean, Friday's a weird day because I'm like, well, I'm not gonna most likely not be home like on a Friday to watch it. Yeah, like I'm not. Yeah. I will say this. I think streaming has made me very spoiled, and I rather binge stuff all at once. There is that feeling though when you watch them all and it's over and you're like, oh, well, fuck. Like, what else am I gonna watch now? Like, it's that feeling, like not a depressed feeling, but it's just like, man, it's already over. Like, how long do I have to wait for like season 2 or season 3?
Yep, a year and a half.
Yeah, but then like, I can't imagine, like, I mean, like, dude, like, when primetime TV was like still doing well, I remember when I was a fan of Lost, and I hated waiting a week to like see what was going to happen like next.
And then guess what they leave you with? A cliffhanger
every fucking week. And then
every episode.
And then I got smart and I realized in season 3, I was like, they don't know where they're going with this show at all. So I'm like,
no, they have no idea. They still didn't. But
end. And then they were like, hey, we promise you they're not in purgatory. And then like when they ended, they were like, well, that was kind of purgatory.
They're all dead.
Yeah, I was like, whatever.
Spoilers alert. Sorry guys, for everyone who's never seen Lost.
Oh, sorry guys. I thought everyone had seen it at this point. Well,
it's been a few years.
It's been some years. But yeah, like I said, I think I've been spoiled, and I just like want to watch it all at once. I don't want to wait. I mean, you can watch, but also like if you want to watch like 4 and then go to bed, you can do that. Like, you don't have to watch all 10 episodes. At once. So
well, that's the trouble is holding yourself back when it's already 11:45 at night and you're like, should I start another episode?
Yeah. Well, I think I told you. I think I told you the first time. The first time I started watching Euphoria, it was at 11:30 at night, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna watch like 2 of these and then go to bed.
And then by the next
day, all of a sudden it was like 4 in the morning. I was like, oh god, what am I doing? But like, you know, you just it happens. But like, yeah, but I'd rather have that. I'd rather have the ability to just like kind of watch them all at once instead of waiting. We touched on this, but what movie makes you cry?
Dude, Marriage Story made me cry, definitely. I would say Closer, when we watched that made me cry. There were some moments in there that were pretty fucking close to heart and pretty tough. Moana is always a Disney movie that makes me cry. No matter what, when she's singing about her grandma and then the manta ray shows up, like in the sort of like that night scene. Every time, every single time, without fail. One of the first movies I ever cried at was when King Kong died, dude. In King Kong, the fucking one with
pretty sad. Yeah, that's pretty sad,
dude. I didn't expect it to happen, but it happened, and I'm gonna say it freely.
All right, so those are good choices, and they're actually, the good thing about those choices is that they're all for different reasons.
They're all for very different reasons.
You would like be emotional watching it. Yeah. I will say, well, we talked about these movies already. The Perks of Being a Wallflower still makes me tear up, certain parts of it. It doesn't happen so much every time I watch it now, but like there's moments in 25th Hour that do it, and it's the part at the end where his dad's supposed to be taking him to prison, and he has that whole monologue about like, well, if I turn here instead of taking you there, like this is what your life could be like if you decide to go on the run, basically. And it's just that Brian Cox is like so good in that scene, like the delivery of like this life he's explaining like you could have. And then like watching it the first time, I wanted to believe that is what happened. Like he decided not to take him to prison, and he ended up meeting Naturel later again in life, and they got together. The guy who wrote the book and Spike Lee all confirmed that, like, you know, this was just all, you know, it was a fantasy. But it's so well done, and the music's really good in that scene. And it's great. I don't know why it gets me, because, like, you know, we talked about this like in person. Like, I haven't been close to my real dad in like forever, so I don't know where it comes from. But it hits pretty close. So maybe just like maybe I was thinking like if it was another loved one in general.
It's just a deeply emotional scene in general, where it's like it's like choosing the fate of your child, basically. It's like, do I want to condemn him to this? I mean, either fate is bad. One is going to be locked behind bars. One is free, but also not free because you're constantly looking over your shoulder.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's like one of those scenes where it's like either outcome is going to be bad, and which one do I choose for him? And it's very emotional.
Yeah, I love the moment where he's like doing the monologue, and they're at the bar, and he was like, his dad was like a recovering alcoholic, and he was like, you know, I haven't had a drink in like this many years, but I'm gonna have like one more whiskey with my boy. I don't know. God, it's just so like the amount of love that's there. Like you know, as a viewer, you're watching, you're like, oh, I could see this being real. This could like be his life.
It's like, very realistic.
Yeah, I thought it was like handled really well. Wow. I'm only gonna say this other one because we talked about this, but when I was younger, E.T. used to make me cry a lot. I'm an adult now, so it doesn't really much. But like as a kid, you're like, dude, this like little thing's his like best friend now, and now he's gonna leave. Like it's sad. Like you don't want him to go back home. Like it's you know, Steven Spielberg's good at like.
I can't share your emotion.
I feel like you're one of those people that like didn't think E.T. was at all like I have friends that used to be like frightened of it when they were younger. They were like, oh, that scene where he's like almost dying. He's like almost dying in white. Yeah. Either people really love it or they're just like, I don't get your attachment to it, which is hilarious. It's fine. We don't all have to like the same stuff.
We're going to disagree on that point.
The cool thing about this one is that we share the same one for most overrated TV show. And and for the exact same reasons. Yeah.
For the exact same reasons. 3, 2, 1. Big Bang Theory.
Big Bang Theory. I don't get it. I've never got it.
Most overrated TV show. No, yes, I understand it. I get it. I get the humor. It's not funny.
Yep. And that's the worst thing someone could tell you is like, well, you're just not smart enough. I mean, that's why you don't get it. I'm like,
get the jokes.
I get it. It's just not funny. I almost chose Friends, but I think there are episodes of Friends I actually think are funny. So I couldn't quite call it overrated.
I enjoy some Friends. I don't enjoy any.
I haven't enjoyed one single moment of the Big Bang Theory. And it was on for years and years.
It's almost worse than 2.5 Men, and that's saying something.
Yeah. Favorite guilty pleasure TV show?
The characters continue to develop and they don't stay stagnant, where like they're always like there is always something that happens with them that continues throughout the rest of the show.
Morgan Brown was the one that told me to watch that show.
They adapt from it, and like there's all these things where it's like, oh, like now I can't use my hands anymore. Okay, like how is your character going to change? Like there's a lot of different things that happens in the show, and it's I very much enjoy it. So that's my guilty pleasure.
I went with actually I don't feel guilty. I still like it, but I can see why people would say it's a guilty pleasure. I used to love Gossip Girl and still do. But it very much I'll say this. I think season 1 is solid. It's got solid writing, and like, but like most shows like that, like most teen shows, it goes off the rails even as early as season 2. And it just but it's so like addicting to watch though, like even when it's not as good as it should be. And you know, I also stand by this, probably one of the most attractive main casts from a show in a long time. Like everybody
of all time
is aesthetically good looking on that show. Yep. I mean you start with Blake Lively, work your way down. I mean, like it's everyone. I think that was a prerequisite to be.
Yeah, everybody.
It was a prerequisite to be pretty if you're going to be on Gossip Girl.
Yep, well done. Well done, casting crew.
Thank you. Do you think more films should hit streaming and skip theaters? And you actually said no. We talked about that earlier.
Yeah. No, we need theaters. We need them.
I think so too. I don't like. There's nothing I think that can replace that. Like, I know we've brought this movie up before, but like seeing something like Avengers Endgame, I can imagine seeing that for the first time at home.
You're about to take one of my answers from my later questions.
Oh shit! See, I gotta read ahead.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that you can't you can't replicate that at home. Like, I love watching movies at home, but like there's that whole like communal experience of like seeing something like that with a bunch of people you don't know. Like
it's just like enjoying something together, and like or also maybe not enjoying something together. Like seeing a movie and like everyone thinks it's bad. Sometimes you just kind of leave the theater and you give that guy a look, and they're like, "Yeah, that was kind of whack." And you're like, "Yeah, I know, I fucking know, that shit sucks."
Yeah,
but I mean, also the exact opposite of leaving the theater and being like, "Yo, that was a great movie."
And you're all talking about it. Like,
you're all talking about your favorite moments. Everything was great.
Yeah, and this also goes whether you like loved it or hate it. You're talking about it like, you know,
you're just talking about what you just saw. No matter what, you're talking about what you just witnessed. I love it.
But what I will say for streaming is that I think there are certain movies that like are perfect for it. I don't think it should, I think certain movies should premiere there, but like for the most part, I would even say like, I mean, a lot of people don't want to give like, we didn't talk about this, but like, a lot of people are upset about how they're handling, the Knives Out sequel, because like Netflix paid $450 million for 2 sequels. They're only releasing it in theaters for a week, starting November 23rd, and then it goes to Netflix on December 23rd. And nice. a lot of like movie theater exhibitors were like upset because Knives Out, when it came out in 2019, made a lot of money, and it was also an older skewing movie that made a lot of money. So they're pretty pissed that like, even as the movie theaters are still trying to recover, that something like Netflix is still like
holding out on it.
Yeah. And like, I actually get that point too. Like, when I first heard that they bought it, I was like, oh, and they're also not going to release the box office numbers from that week. They're not going to let you know how much it made. So like that is another, so like is
that like a strategy play, or like, I don't know what that is. That seems
I think they do. I think they do it as like a strategy. So they're like, oh, well, they won't know if it failed or if it was successful.
But also like if people are dying to have it shown in their theaters, like why wouldn't you let them show it?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know.
But yeah, long live movie theaters. We need them. I will die on that hill. Okay, let's see. Where did we leave off? Favorite comedy.
Oh,
this
dude.
was hard. This was hard.
So I said, it's impossible. It's absolutely impossible to tell what my favorite comedy is, because there's so many different types of moods and humors that you want to like laugh at, and certain things like there's dry comedy, anything from What We Do in the Shadows to like even any sort of British comedy, like
it's like satire, like
Afterlife, or anything like that. But then there's stuff like Land of the Lost, which was a terrible movie, but I laugh at every time I watch it. I mean, even just like so one of the things I wrote down that Gaius has seen is the monologue that he does when he wakes up from his food coma after inventing this time travel device.
Yeah.
And basically he's like, then I made my way over to Subway after 2 foot long, 15,000 calories later, found myself at Arby's. Powering through a double beef and cheddar. It's just like talking about all of these fast food places, just like indulging in his horrible like he just can't stop eating. And then but that's just like one part of the movie that has nothing to do with the movie, but just like scenes like that kind of are like a sort of a side quest from a good comedy movie that are some of the ones that stick out to me. And so it's just impossible for me to pick a favorite comedy.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, I chose Friday, and I don't even know if that is my favorite, but I think it's really funny, and it never gets old when I watch it, and I still crack up like it's the first time I've seen it. I think out of every genre, though, that's the hardest one to pick. Of like, what is your favorite? Because, like you said, there's so many different types of them. You know, like there's like you said, there's satire, there's like dry British humor, there's like gross out comedies. Like there's so many different types of them. It's hard. I only went with one because I gotta pick one. But like that could change like next week. I could probably watch something else. Be like, oh yeah, I thought that was funnier.
It's like one day you could watch Pineapple Express and it's your favorite movie of all time. Next day you watch it, you're like, this is so fucking stupid. Like I've already seen this many times. Like I don't really want to watch this. Like it's not like what I'm into right now. And so I feel like comedies are kind of like that. Like even just with TV shows, like comedy TV shows. Like sometimes I want to watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Other times I can't wait to turn it off.
You have to be in the mood. You have to be in the mood for it. Like I mean, like, and I love that. I love that show too.
Feeling when it comes to comedy, and I feel like there's so many different types of it. So that's a really tough one. I mean, I will say Superbad probably is my favorite comedy of all time. If I had to pick one, it's just I can. It's the most quotable movie. I know all the lines from it, and it still makes me laugh to this day. So
yeah, that's a good choice. Actually,
I'll pick that one.
What TV show have you rewatched the most?
Probably for me, How I Met Your Mother. If I have like a specific TV show consistently that I watch that has a lot of seasons and a lot of different episodes, a lot of great moments in that show. Even though I statistically hate laugh tracks, but at the end of the day, that is one of my favorite shows. It's great.
Well, I don't love laugh tracks either, but I mean, I've only watched a handful of episodes of that show. That's one of the shows that I kind of would like to watch from the beginning and how it goes. But I will say, from watching the few that I have watched, even though it's a laugh track show, they all are genuinely funny. So I feel like the jokes are actually landing, and it's not just like So like, if there is going to be a laugh track, then the actors have to be really funny for me to be like, all right, well, I believe they earned that laugh.
Yeah. No, definitely.
Well, that's funny because the show I picked, one of the girls is on How I Met Your Mother, Buffy the Vampire. So that's probably the show I rewatched the most. Allison Hannigan was also on How I Met Your Mother.
Hannigan.
She's great. I've rewatched that show. It's been a while since I rewatched all of it, but I've rewatched that show the most, and of course, find new things to love about it. And I also love that it still holds up, even though it premiered in '97. Holds up really well. It also takes me back to like I love that time period, like the late '90s, when like all that stuff was kind of emerging back then. Like for me, it was like
even just the way that they're dressed. Is late 90s.
It was like, well, it was cool because I talked about it with Donnie with Mark, from Release Day Rewind when we did I Know What You Did Last Summer, and like for us that grew up in that time period, like 97, 98, when like all that stuff was like coming out, like those were like our actors and our movies and our shows. Like they were making those like for our generation. Like we were getting we were getting new horror movies like Scream and I Know You Did Last Summer and Urban Legend, and then we were also getting our own like teen comedies like She's All That and 10 Things I Hate About You. So
American Pie.
American Pie. So like that period of time, it's like, oh, those movies were made specifically for us. And I think that's why that whole time period kind of still holds up pretty well for me, I think. I kind of miss it. Even though like when I look back on it and it's like 25 years ago that some of this stuff premiered, it makes me feel kind of old, but there's that. Let's see, where did I leave off? Oh, this was easy for me. Okay, what TV show has overstayed its welcome?
For me, I said the entire franchise of NCIS.
I just read that. I just read that all variations. not just the parent show.
Time to end NCIS. All variations.
Not just the parent show. Like everyone.
Not this many Navy men and women are being murdered. It's over. We don't need military crime shows.
Now they're everywhere. They're like in LA. I think isn't there a Miami
NCIS
now?
Albuquerque.
Well, I went with Grey's Anatomy. I feel like it's overstayed its welcome.
It's time for Grey's too.
It still does so well, but I just
I know
it's not. My mom would kill me right now though because she loves that show. Still.
Yeah, and NCIS, all variations.
Dude, some of your answers to these were hilarious because I'm just reading them like kind of flat. Like, what movie deserves a sequel?
So actually, this is for my first answer. I think Man from U.N.C.L.E. deserves a remake, but unfortunately, the cannibal that is Armie Hammer has ruined it.
Well, Armie Hammer ruined it.
We will never get another one. That was a great duo of Henry Cavill and Armie Hammer. I think that. Gosh, what was the girl's name? She's I'm
blanking on her name too. I can like see her face
Eastern European too. She's amazing. So
good that movie's like pretty underrated too. Like I kind of think like it didn't do that great when it came out, but I think it kind of found like life good, after.
It was really good. Really liked it.
So I tend to think a lot of things don't deserve sequels. This was actually hard. I kept erasing it, but I did go with this one because I really liked it. I would like a sequel to District 9.
Ooh, that's a good choice, dude.
I think that, and I know like a lot of people love that movie. They think that movie is perfect as is, but I think there could be a lot more interesting stuff you can explore with like that universe. I think in general.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, the director of that movie has not like had like huge successes after that. He did like Elysium with like Matt Damon. What other movie did he do? I can't think of the other one, but it didn't do well either.
Chappie, another dystopian.
That one. I almost said Wall-E. That one, yeah, Chappie. So like he kind of like came out the gate swinging and didn't really like live up to that promise. But like District 9, I thought was really good, and like I would like to see more. And those movies are a tough sell for me. I don't necessarily love like sci-fi stuff like that, but like I really enjoyed them a lot.
The thing is, like, if there was going to be a sequel, it would have to be, for me, more dialogue and politically based than action, because they would have to kind of be like, hey, like, what is the situation between this race and the humans, and like, why were they there, why were they stuck, what were they looking for? And like it can't be like Independence Day. Like I'm not looking for like just like a big massive shootout between aliens and humans. Like it's got to be something more than that.
You want an actual story?
Like that's been done. That's been done many times before. You have to have something where it's like there is intelligent life out there. They're looking for something specific. There's something we can give them. They haven't gotten it yet. How are they going to get it? How are we going to help them? What are we looking for from them? How do we get them out of here? How do we make them stay? Whatever it is, doesn't matter. But that's what I would look for in a sequel to a sci-fi movie like that.
Right. Yeah. Well, I was like, yeah, I would love to see more from that. And it's so crazy too. That movie got nominated for Best Picture. That's rare for
that's crazy.
Movies,
that's crazy
for movies like that too. Yeah. This was hard. What movie deserves a remake? I know most people don't want to remake movies. But
yeah, this was a hard one for me. Like I didn't really have a good answer for this, because I wasn't really like, I honestly didn't have a good answer. Like nothing came to mind sort of straight off the bat. But what I wrote down was, so Castlevania has a great animated series on Netflix. Is there a way a movie like that can be made? Can you put all of that into one movie? I don't know. Are you going to ruin it? Can you do live action like what you can do in animation? No.
right.
So that's tough. That's tough to sell. It's also expensive to do the CGI.
Yeah.
But I feel like a Castlevania movie would be awesome. It would be sweet.
Okay. Nice.
If there was a chance. But I mean, that's not really even a remake because no one's made a movie like that before. So
Right.
I don't really have if anything, I'll go with what's that Robin Williams one with the green goo?
Remake Flubber? Flubber?
Yeah, Flubber. Yeah. Let's do a Flubber remake.
This is so random. You've been dying for a remake of Flubber?
I've been dying for a Flubber remake.
No,
dude.
no. Owen wants a legacy. Wants a legacy sequel for Flubber. You're like, it's been long enough. We need one.
Long enough. Give me Flubber too.
So this one I can't even say my straight face. Jesus.
Oh my god.
I'm still thinking about Flubber. So I was against this one initially until Donnie and I did an anniversary episode for the movie. And he convinced me why it would be a good idea. I love the original The Lost Boys, like the 80s vampire movie. I think it's perfect the way it is. But then he kind of like pitched like an idea of like how they could do it today. And they've been trying to do, like, they've had sequels, like straight to video sequels that were awful. The CW tried to make a Lost Boys TV show like 4 times. It didn't work out. They did talk about doing a remake in the last couple of years, but I think the pandemic kind of shut that down. I think that idea could work now. Like, I mean, there's something about it, the original one, like the plot itself is pretty timeless, even though it's a very, I mean, it came out in what, 87, so it's a very 80s movie. Like everyone, like the vampires look like they were members of like Whitesnake, and like everyone has like big hair.
It's funny we're talking about remakes, and the first thing that both of us go to is vampires.
We're vampires.
The Lost Boys and Castlevania. We're like, we want more vampires.
We want more vampire. I need more vampire content. But yeah, a few years ago we were like, don't touch that fucking movie. It's perfect. But like, I think she'd think. Now
you're thinking about like what it could look like.
Yeah, and you know, horror movie remakes tend to do okay. They tend to be like decent. Like I love The Hills Have Eyes. I think it's better than the original. I like The Last House on the Left. I think it's better than the original. I don't think the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake is better than the original, but it stands up pretty well against it. So horror remakes tend to be like a little easier, I think, to kind of, there's a little bit more leeway. But yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing that. And if you'd asked me 3 years ago, I would be like, nope. Don't touch it. Don't touch it.
That's funny.
Okay. This is why you said what you said earlier. What was your favorite movie theater experience?
Yeah, this could be a quick one. I mean, it was when I saw Avengers Endgame. I remember just like the second, even the logo came out where it just said Avengers Endgame, like after sort of like the cold open, I guess you could call it. It was just like cheers. Anytime like a character came out, when Spider-Man showed up after he had been dissolved,
after he'd been dusted,
people were crying and like it was just an entire immersive experience into the like watching this movie, which was crazy. So that was really cool to see, because it was what, 10 years in the making kind of thing.
Yeah, it was like a culmination of like all those movies.
It was a culmination of everything, and we were kind of, especially after the masterpiece that is Infinity War. Like,
yeah, I mean,
the
like
cliffhanger of all cliffhangers, and so people were down to see this movie. So it was great. But I will say another one that's just like a great movie theater experience. If you ever have a chance to go see Rocky Horror Picture Show,
I've never done that. Dude, I've never done it. I heard it's a lot of fun too.
It's a lot of fun, man. It's like an entire experience. Like there's certain lines that once they're set on screen, there's a response from the crowd. People throw things, people dress up. It's like an entire
experience.
It's like an immersive experience. Like you're all
part
of it.
It is, and it's really fun. And the movie's like weird, but also good and funny. And there's like music, and it's great. So if you have a chance to go over see that, if like I used to work at a theater that they would put on once a year. They'd have the Rocky Horror Picture Show come through, and everyone would come through dressed up, and like it was just like a big event.
Yeah.
So you have any local theaters out there, anyone who's listening out here who have a local theater that's putting it on, highly recommend going to see it. It's just like a fun, you're gonna be there and just be like, what the fuck is happening? But also like, this is crazy. Like this is funny. So it's a good chance. It's good fun.
Yeah,
good time.
I'm gonna steal your first one. I think Avengers Endgame is probably my favorite movie going thing. And I saw that 3 times in theaters, and each time the reactions were very big to like everything that was going on. I remember I saw it the second time I saw it with my friend Steffa, and like I don't remember anyone crying the first time I saw it, but then like she was like in tears, like when like the heroes first came back, like all the portals started opening up, and like, but then I looked around at other people, and other people were tearing up too, like the whole, and then like when you realize that Tony Stark was like actually dying, like there was a lot of the last, like I think 15 minutes of that movie are just like a lot, but like you said, it is a culmination of like all these movies that you've watched since the first Iron Man, and like this is like now this is where we get here to kind of see how this ends for this like these set of heroes. And like you know we've talked a lot about like this current phase of Marvel, and like it's been like hit or miss. I think even though like I think it's cool that they're doing the Kang Dynasty and they're doing Secret Wars, which is another big Avengers story in the comic books, I just think it's gonna be so hard to live up to that, to like what they did with Endgame.
I'm gonna disagree with so hard. It's impossible. It's impossible.
Yeah.
It's something that's never been done before and never will be recreated again. It's people's first introduction to what superhero movies could be, and it'll never relive the same hype that Endgame and Avengers culminated into. And so like regardless of how great these movies are going to be to come, this was a special time to be able to live through, to say that like we got to live through like kind of these movies coming out every single year, that we were able to see them in theaters, and we all saw them every single time. And it's just one of those things that now people have this sort of hatred towards superhero movies.
Yeah, it's like there's a shift. There's like a shift. Even other directors like talking shit.
And directors and actors. Leo DiCaprio told Timothy Chalamet, don't do a
superhero movie.
Dune
is fine. Dune's okay. Dune is fine, even though that's like basically like a big budget, like it's not a comic movie, but like
it's one of those things that like now it's sort of meta in the sense that it's not cool.
Yeah.
And I think The Rock might be actually experiencing some of that from
a little bit with Black Adam.
A little bit with Black Adam, where it's like, oh, you're just another famous person who's cashing in on the superhero.
Well, here is where we're at with like the open disdain for some of these movies from other directors. James Cameron did an interview like with Variety. He's with Zoe Saldana because she's in Avatar and she's in the sequel. And then he started ripping our Marvel movies, and I was like, dude, she's like Gamora. A bunch of them. You're like saying that like they don't have like the emotional depth like other big budget movies. Like, and he was like, yeah, I'm looking at you, DC and Marvel. And I was like, if I was her, I would have been like,
you know, they paid me a lot of money, right?
Yeah, you know, I've been in 6 of these, right? Like, what the hell? Like that's where we're kind of at. And like, I hate, like, I get it, like. James Cameron's a great filmmaker. Martin Scorsese, great filmmaker. I don't get why veteran filmmakers have to shit on the movies like that. Because, like, even if you don't like them, a lot of time and a lot of talent went into making them. So it's just like, it's really disrespectful, I think, to like.
I agree. It's just, I think it's so weird because there's never been a point in time where like a specific genre has completely taken over and just like basically been the money driver of movies for a generation.
Right.
Like there's never been since silent films, before movies just became the thing, and like that was like the thing. But like there's never been like a specific type of movie that you can make and you're kind of guaranteed at least $400 or $500 million.
Yep. And I think
if you got the right animators, you got like a decent cast, like a fucking shitty script, but you got CGI, it's fine.
Like that's kind of what I think everyone's making fun of and catching it on is like, yeah, like, you know what, like these movies, they don't really have any substance. They're just a bunch of action sequences with quick cuts, and you can kind of make a mint off of that.
Yeah, and love it or hate it, I think what Dwayne Johnson said about Marvel, and actually he was talking specifically about Marvel because they were saying like, with Black Adam, do you think like you're gonna be like snipping at the heels of Marvel? And he said it's not really about that. But what he did say, he was like, for better or worse, whether you like them or not, like those movies have kept our industry afloat for the last few years, like making all this money. And like I think you need to really kind of give them their due when it comes to that. Like I like, if not for Marvel movies and to a lesser extent horror movies which do well but not on that level, like you'd be hard pressed to find like a big hit that's not based on some kind of like comic book IP.
Yeah.
And like, and I mean, for people that like, is that a sad thing for the industry? Like maybe, but like, it's just like,
it did kind of help the industry, man. I mean, like when Shang-Chi came out, that made
a lot of money,
a fuck ton of money, man.
And made a lot of money in the middle of
when everything else was making like $15 to $20 million.
Yep.
Like they made 250 million. It's
like even their lesser stuff, we could take like Eternals made a lot of money worldwide. So it's just like they like, I agree. I think that like it does they've kept things going. So respect it on that level. I mean, and also if you're a veteran filmmaker, I don't like, just remember that you started out once making certain movies. And I know you would probably hate if like you heard a director like saying to you that like the movies that you made don't have substance, they don't have depth, they're not like, they don't emotionally resonate with me. That's a really shitty thing to do when like these directors, editors, everyone who's working on this stuff is spending so much time putting that stuff together. Because you know, I always laugh, like Elizabeth Olsen made a good point. She was talking about how she was talking about the scene where like she has to like basically kill Vision to get his stone river, right? And she's like, in the movie it looks very highly emotional, it looks really well done, but she's like, can you imagine that like I'm standing there, there's nothing coming out of my hands, there's nothing, I have to stand there and pretend like there's this big immersive thing going on, and it's up to a director to make you also believe that you're in that moment. And I think that's hard. I think that like if you don't have a certain amount of imagination, you can't sell that. So
everything
like I think
is so fake in all of those movies. You have to imagine you're doing all of it. Yeah, it's basically kids jumping around playing pretend.
Yeah, you're being paid.
That is what it is.
You're getting paid to be a big child, basically, and like shooting stuff out of your hands. Like, it's cool. Like, yeah, basically.
Yeah, it's like, it's probably fun as hell, but also it's probably really not easy to sell it.
Yeah,
because you have to be able to make it look realistic once the effects come in.
Yep, I agree. All right, we got 3 more. Let's see. Favorite movie genre to watch with friends?
I said action comedy. Just like something that's not too serious. Just kind of like be free and like see some cool stunts, see some stuff that's like a funny action story, and then just kind of move on. It's nothing too heavy. That's usually one of my favorite things to watch.
Nice.
Maybe a heist movie, I guess, if you have a chance. But
so that's good. Like you wouldn't invite me over to watch like 12 Years a Slave. That's good.
Yeah, probably not.
You're like, let's watch that.
Probably not.
And with a toss up between comedies and horror films, I think they're really fun to watch with a group of people. I also love, I mean, this might be awful, but I love watching horror movies with people that not necessarily that they don't like them, but they get very uncomfortable. Like they can barely like watch the screen while they're like watching them. Those are actually fun people to watch those kind of movies with too. Cause like they want to kind of be involved, and it's like a train wreck. They're like,
they're scared.
They're scared. Yeah.
I'm exactly that way.
It's like, and like,
I watched it like this with my hat down.
The whole building tension. You're like, when's it gonna happen?
Yeah.
Name a movie that you once didn't like but has grown on you.
This was a tough one for me. I said a simple favor. I know we talked about this a lot on the podcast, but like I remember halfway through, I was like, this movie's kind of weird, not really sure what's going on. Ended up by the end of it loving it, but I don't really have a good answer for one that like later on I started to love after not liking it the first time.
I love A Simple Favor. I also love that they're making a sequel.
Yeah,
I mean, I just, like didn't know we were gonna get it, but happy to have it.
Mm-hmm.
I did two for this one, and they're by the same director. I hated Romeo and Juliet and Moulin Rouge the first times I saw them. Um, I had to learn that's what Baz Luhrmann does. It's very flashy and very like
in your face.
He even did that with Elvis. There's stuff in Elvis. I was like, did you really have to do all that? Like,
yeah.
But they've grown on like Moulin Rouge more than Romeo and Juliet. They're really well made movies. I think Romeo and Juliet, when I first saw it, I think I was just confused by like, all right, well, it's modern times. I get okay, but then they're also still speaking in like pure on like Shakespearean speak. So I was like, I don't get it. I mean, I was too young, I think. But then like over time, I started to appreciate for how like it's really well shot. It's like pretty well executed. I think the acting is pretty good too, considering that Shakespeare is really hard to nail. I mean, like that's a lot of very
impossible.
wordy. Yeah, but yeah, they've both grown on me a lot since I first saw them.
Nice.
What do you love the most about watching movies and TV?
It's the last one.
Yeah.
Honestly, man, like I just love the fact that storytelling continues to be probably the most profitable industry out there, and it has been for our entire human existence. Basically, people telling each other stories, writing things down, telling each other about things that have either happened or they thought might happen, and just like seeing all these different types of media is so fucking cool, man. And I think that being able to immerse myself in a situation that could never happen in my own life, whether or not it's you can try and make it up yourself, but to see and to be able to intake someone else's version with typically millions of dollars behind their side to show you the story is a really fucking cool time to be in, because it used to just be someone telling you a story just like around a campfire. Now I get to sit on my couch, drink a beer, and watch some Netflix movie that has some insane CGI, and I can just like lose myself in this experience. It's incredible, and I love the ability to pick and choose. It's definitely a tough road to get through sometimes, where you have to figure out what you want to watch. But there's a lot of great content out there right now, and I'm excited to see, especially new content creators come out with something cool. Because we'll get something like Love, Death, Robots, we'll get something like Black Mirror, and we'll get some like great shit that's coming out that no one's ever seen before. And it's just, I think we have a very bright future in the terms of visual media.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think what I've loved about it since I was like a kid, like I agree with the whole like immersive nature of like whether it's movies or TV. I love that you can write and watch. I mean, you can write so many things that are about so many different walks of life. Some of it can be very serious. Some of it can be like completely out there and like wacky and crazy. But like, there's so many different avenues to explore with like what people are creating. I think in a lot of ways, depending on what you're watching, it can be really cathartic if you're like, hey, like, if you feel something visceral from watching something, whether it's something serious or if it's something funny that made you laugh because you needed to laugh, or like with scary movies, if like it's that whole feeling of like, oh, I'm scared but I'm safe because it's not real. There's like that whole like there's that part of it too, and like I'm kind of finding it now too, because like I mean I think I've told you in the past, like I'm writing like kind of TV show that's kind of based on like us basically, like living in the South Bay and stuff like that. It's changed like a lot because relationships have changed, and like I kind of had to like kind of tweak that a little bit. Like you used to be more of a side character, now you're more of like one of the main people, so that's cool. But the cool thing about it is like I outlined what like 5 seasons of it would be, like a 10 episode season. I outlined the whole thing, and what was cool about outlining it though, it was just like preparing to write it. Like I was able to like like write, even writing someone that's supposed to be based on me. I was like, all right, I'm gonna go in flaws and all. I'm not gonna make myself perfect because that wouldn't be cool to like make myself look great and then like present other people's like weaknesses.
Their flaws, as well.
Yeah, right. So like it's also been like I'm imagining as I'm writing it, like what it would be like to watch it, and like for some people when they write and watch some of these things, like like a lot of people are watching things for entertainment, and other people are watching things because they're like, oh, I relate to that, or and I think that's the good thing about
relation.
Yeah. I think that's why like movies and TV like are so good for a lot of us. So like a lot of us are fans of it, and like when we started Back to the Blockbusters, there was a whole like, well, I work in press, I look at things differently than like Owen might look at this. But what I realized too, like I remember when you wrote that review of No Country for Old Men on your phone, and you just like read it to me, and it was like almost like just like stream of consciousness, but like you touched on things that like, all right, this is not just like a casual moviegoer watching it. Like you were picking up on like all these like nuances in it, and like how it was shot, like the way it was written. So like everyone like can kind of get involved in that kind of experience, whether they're in the industry or are industry adjacent. Like I mean, like I think the most universal thing that we kind of have are movies and like TV shows. And like I want to say like sports is also like that, but like everyone doesn't love sports. So like it's like I think that's
true.
I think that industry kind of movies and TV is like for the most part everyone's like, I have a favorite TV show, I have a favorite movie. This is what I like to watch, and that's.
I'll say about what you were saying about me writing some stuff about it too. It's like it's a pro and it's also a con, is the fact that everyone now can be a critic. It's like there are some times where like someone will give you a good response on what they think about a TV show, and you're like, you know what, like that's very intuitive, and you picked up on some things that actually I didn't even notice. Yeah. And then there's another guy who's just like, this is some fucking stupid shit, terribly shot. I hate the actor, hate the actress, like, and it's just nonsense. So
that is Twitter people.
So
definitely Twitter.
That's kind of, the thing is like there's also like that's the reason that this podcast started too, was like I mean, it being the anniversary episode. I mean, we both sort of agreed and also enjoyed talking about our opinions of film and TV, and like that's the whole reason that we started this whole thing, was like we could have an actual educational / fun / like interesting conversation about this type of media, and like that's the whole reason that it started. Whereas it wasn't just like you being like, oh dude, I love Brad Pitt, he's my favorite. Why? It wasn't just like, what's your favorite movie? Oh, like I don't know, like I guess what Batman? The Dark Knight. It's Dark Knight. Dark Knight movie.
That was the cool thing about it. I mean, and of course, like the show is like changed and like all this like stuff, but I think at the core of it, which is like the cool thing about this episode, is that like this is why we started it. I mean, it was just to have like basically having the conversations we have like in real life, and but sharing them with everyone else, and then hopefully you guys like enjoy listening to us like talk about all these different things, riff a little bit, and like and I will say this, like over the course of the year, like I mean I also hats off to you too. I remember when the first time we got guests on, and I had to like, I'm already talking to these people because like through G Reels and everything, like there's certain people I talk on there to every day. I don't like know them in person, but because they followed it for so long, like we like talk back and forth about like their shows or like what they're writing and like all this kind of stuff. And so I already knew some of these people, but then I would like, Owen would have like no prep on like who they really were. It was like, all right, this person's going to be on our show tonight. And you're just like, all right. And you were able to just like wing it with
him. By no prep, you mean like I had
zero prep.
Nothing.
I had zero prep. I'm like, yeah, this person's going to be on the show.
Absolutely
like,
zero prep. I just show up and I'm just like, all right, like, what's up, man?
Yeah. And like, you know what? For the most part, everyone's been great that's like popped on that as guests, and they've all been really nice, and I've been on some of their shows too. And
they've all been really fantastic, man. I've enjoyed really every single guest we've had.
Yeah, and that's also been the fun part about it too, like getting to meet all these different people who all want to talk about the same things, and but are also really cool about it, really nice about it. Like everyone we've kind of had on doesn't really want to like just shit on something just to shit on it. They want to, like, if they don't like something, they give like an honest opinion about why they didn't like it.
Yeah.
And if they're passionate about something, they also tell you why they loved it. So
Exactly.
that's been the coolest part about doing all this. And you know, it's I knew this episode would go long because it's been a year, but
yeah,
you know, I told you this offline already, and I was like, you know, I couldn't have like imagined like celebrating a year of it like without doing it with you. So I'm really
appreciate it, man.
I'm really glad that you decided to be on. And
Yeah.
like I said, you know, we'll talk more, but like, you know, figuring out a way to kind of have you pop in and out, like maybe deep dive a movie that you just watched, like kind of like what you did with Marriage Story.
True, dude. That was
yeah, it'll be fun. I mean,
like maybe we could share those screenshots on the Instagram post or something.
Yeah,
those
for sure.
Some pretty
pretty
good.
We had a good discussion about actors and stuff too. Actually, I think
that was pretty good. That was pretty good.
I think I might actually cut those up and kind of like post them on like
some good stuff
to kind of. But yeah, it was. It's been really fun, and I'm
a little behind the scenes for all the people listening out there.
Oh, you crazy kids! I want to know
what we talk about that's not on the podcast. Just I watch a movie and I tear up and I'm like, Gaius, dude, this movie.
Watch this. It's like
you're like, I know, right? I haven't seen it in 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, I do remember like it ripping me apart.
It's great. And that's the best part is like you can still watch a movie again. That's the best part.
And I'm glad that I watched it like when it first came out. I watched it alone during the day, and like my brother had just gotten home after it was over. And I already gotten out whatever, like, you know, emotional part was like
all the emotion that you need.
And he was like, "What did you just watch?" I was like, "I was watching Marriage Story." Like, you wouldn't like it. Don't watch it. Like, you're not gonna enjoy it.
Dude, that was it's tearjerker, man.
Yeah, for sure.
It evokes some things.
Yeah. But would you like to sign us out?
Sign us off.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for listening to another episode of Back to the Blockbuster, guys. I am thoroughly thrilled to be back for this anniversary episode. I just want to say thank you guys so much for being patient with me. Thank you to Gaius for everything that he does. Thank you to Playlist. You guys have been an amazing partner. Just thoroughly impressed with everything that you guys do. Please listen to Back to the Blockbuster anywhere you get a chance to that you listen to podcasts, whether or not it's Apple Podcasts, Apple Music, Spotify, Google Podcasts, whatever it is. Type in Back to the Blockbuster. You'll find us. We have a cool blue logo, courtesy of our friends.
Oh my God, the logo
that we chose.
We did show.
There was two options.
Well,
there was two options. One was incredible. The one that we chose.
I don't feel bad saying this because Playlist knows. They know. And I remember what the choice was obvious to me, but I was like, all right, I still got to share it.
You sent it to me, and you're like 1 or 2, and I was like 2.
And you right away, and I I was like, please don't say. I was like, please don't say like.
You're like, thank God. Because
I will say this: they put in work. They did the images. One clearly popped, and the other one didn't. Yeah. But I'm glad we landed on this one because I get the most compliments about that, and I'm like, yo, that wasn't even like me. That's all them. So like, thank you so much for.
But but we chose right. We chose right. We
did,
right.
yeah.
So but yeah, thank you guys so much for listening, and please keep tuning in because I'm gonna be back.
Yes, good to hear. Love it. Thank you for coming back on, buddy.
Cheers.